2024. We will forego the invocation and pledge for the regular meeting. We'll just jump right into the matter of the evening, and that is the sports complex update. To you, Arlene.
Great. Thank you, Council. I would just like to introduce Patrick Sampson again from COGIO, who's here. He's going to lead the presentation and give you the presentation on the sports complex in Canby. It has been a longstanding council goal, as you know, and most recently on July, the City Council received a presentation from COGIO. At that point in time, the site was at the Malala State Park. This is a different site and a different set of renderings that you have. Thank you for all of those who asked questions, and I put as much as I could in the staff report. What I am hoping to do, and at the end of the staff report, it says possible next steps and questions. So I want you to think about those as you hear the presentation. And they are, is the council interested in continuing to explore this project? Is there a property that may be willing to sell, a property owner that may be willing to sell, donate, or partner in providing land for this project? What would be the terms of the conditions of a deal? If so, is there interest in hearing more about the Lithia and Driveway Fields project in Medford? And should the city work with a consultant to assist with the land use, financial, and economic analysis of this project? So those are just some possible next steps for you to consider. But I would say let's turn it over to Patrick and let him present this next set of renderings and ask whatever questions you need to. So.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending and presenting for us tonight.
Absolutely. Well, the goal today is to just provide a brief update since the last time we had a chance to chat. And also there have been some general questions that have been floated. And so we'd love to bring more transparency to a public forum and some of those things that I'm sure a lot of people have interest in. I'll preface the questions, answers by nothing is by any means final, but there are preferences and in our experience, circumstances that work best for both parties. And so that's the basis for the preliminary question answers that you'll see here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. It works, thanks. So a lot of people have had questions around the structure of the partnership, who will be responsible for what. And preliminarily, we'd love to describe some of that. So Oregon Youth Soccer is the organization that has hired COGIO, just for people who aren't familiar, to assist them with really what we call concept to final completion and all the steps in between. So that is land identification, working with the city, identifying the right place, and then going deeper into that partnership, and then that translating to what we're going to be talking about today, helping out with some of the details in the partnership. And then ultimately, a core competency of our company is fundraising. And so that's why you see this first part, who will be responsible for the initial build out costs. We're proposing that the Oregon Youth Soccer Association be responsible for the initial build out costs of the lights in the fields. And that also includes a fund that a lot of groups make a mistake with, which is not including maintenance. So you've built the facility, but you need to also plan for the future of the facility. So that's part of what we're proposing to, as OYSA, manage. And so that also includes the fees and costs of our services. That will not be something that the city assumes. That's something that Oregon Youth Soccer is proposing to continue to assume throughout the entirety of the rest of the phase. And what we would ask in return for that is the city to work with us there are times when city personnel's support and/or collaboration on, say, a county grant or something of that nature that might require some technical information about road infrastructure, we would just ask, and we would assume the city would, based on our working relationship so far, be very excited to do that. We don't anticipate that being a significant amount of resources, but just generally supportive when called upon in that campaign to raise funds to participate with us. In exchange for that, the Oregon Youth Soccer Association would request a credit and rental fees for the payment of the build-out. Who will own the land? This is something that the city, in our opinion, is the best candidate to own the land. I think there's a lot of reasons why acquiring the land by the city makes the most sense. But in this proposal, we're preliminarily proposing that the city assume and hold ownership. Now, how we get to that point could be many different directions, and I know that the city's done different things in the past to achieve that end state, but I think generally that end state is what people were most curious about. So that was the answer to that question. Who will own or control the annual usage calendar? So the good news is with what we've proposed is around a 7-field soccer, lacrosse, football, turf, and then 2 softball and 2 baseball fields. The average amount that OYSA at their current highest level would only be about 14% of that usage time. And so we would just request that we would have the first right of refusal to the usage times. But other than that, the city would control the usage calendar of the facility for its additional needs. Who will manage the facility and benefit from the profit and loss of the operations? We've proposed that the city operate and maintain the facility. Scheduling and OYSA can manage this if desired, but in initial talks, we felt like the city was the best candidate to run that. OYSA has experience running a lot of facilities, or I should say managing them. They don't own them. So that's a competency, if needed, can be presented, but given the usage time and also the benefit to the city and the profit from that management overall, we felt the city was the best candidate to that. And the city then would oversee the facility profitability and receive the financial benefits of the operational surplus from the facility. And it just makes sense, as well as the economic benefits that are part of the tourism that comes to the city. Now, that would be a benefit to the city regardless of who manages the facility, but you would have more control as the city over the activity, thus a bit more of the benefit. We'll get into this in a moment, but there's a great case study that came out from Medford about a month ago that outlined about 10 years into this type of decision to build out a facility. And so they manage it. It's very similar in what we're proposing here. Who will be responsible for any follow-ups or future upgrades? We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, but regardless of any model that we do, whether the organization pays for it or the city pays for it, we always advise that throughout the time that the facility is being operated, that there's savings that are done incrementally over each year to prepare for that replacement cost in the future. It's a big mistake that a lot of people without a lot of experience make, which is they end up 10 years down the road and the turf is ready for replacing and there is not a pool of funds to do that. As long as you budget for that, it's fairly easy to be ready for that. Also, you can save that, invest that in conservative or risk-free investments, make a little bit of money over that period of time to support that. So there's just great business practices around that. Okay, assuming a property owner is interested, we're able to attract one and they commit to a sale price tomorrow, what is the master timeline with process steps from now to opening the facility? There's a lot of steps in this. too many to cover in this session, for sure. But generally speaking, if we had all the stars aligned now and there was no prohibiting factor with the land in any sort of broad stroke, the process of bringing something that's not in the urban growth boundary into the urban growth boundary and doing the things that we would know would need to happen, water, power, sewer, probably 2027. But the city should be able to, with the information that we have, draft that logical master plan based on the processes and procedures it's familiar with and the dynamics that we are here today. So it's not going to happen tomorrow, but with great diligent planning, we don't think we're 10 years away. Let's put it that way. Do we have an offer from a property owner to sell this to the city? No, is the official answer. Although we've had some conversations with some property owners to respect their privacy at their request. We won't talk much about that, but there have been some conversations which are great. So that takes things away from where we were on just after the 4th of July in the summer, where Molalla State Park was really determined to not be the right location. The good news is there are some opportunities for this. What are the revenue streams other than team tournament play and practices that have been successfully generated? Well, something that is a big asset in partnering with the Oregon Youth Soccer Association and other groups that are nonprofit organizations is incorporating donation-based revenue, additional revenue streams that have nothing to do with programmatic operations. And that can be direct or indirect. So the Oregon Youth Soccer Association is a large organization, does more than just field operations. If they receive funds to support, say, club development, referee development, other things that are correlated but not exactly land use, there opens up a ton of additional resources other than what they're doing in programs to support the work either directly or indirectly. But generally speaking, when we do ongoing professional fundraising with groups to support either their programs or facility build-outs, the revenue streams are from foundations who could be interested in supporting communities, corporations who might be interested in sponsorship and naming rights. And we've done large multi-million-dollar deals. They're big for facilities around the country. Individual donations, federal, state, and county grants, tourism related, generally speaking, and social impact investments. So people who might be interested in participating in some of the financial benefits for an upfront cash flow. We've done some of that around the country. Okay, what is COGIO's recommendation on how to phase the project? So typically, when we understand the final build-out dynamics, the actual location, how much the land's going to cost, we have a pretty good idea of the footprint we want. So that isn't as conceptual anymore. However, the other elements, when we have those finalized, we always recommend on focusing on the elements that are most cost effective, so least amount of cost, most amount of revenue generation. That generally means not doing any type of indoor buildings, so just doing the fields. It also means focusing on things that generate revenue right away and not really anything beyond that. So we'll have more information about this, but from a broad stroke, you want to start and prioritize the things that you can rent, that make you money, and also benefit the community in the way that we're looking to do. In what we have proposed as part of the preliminary renderings, there are a couple of indoor buildings that are probably going to be will be far more expensive than the outdoor fields. Also, cement is very expensive. And so we would be strategic about where we place parking, how we do parking in whatever land parcel we choose. So that could also be a variable cost, but we would minimize that. So if it comes back where that cost is prohibitive to do all in one large swath, then we will phase it to prioritize those things. We just don't know what that looks like yet. It could be all in one, or it could be focusing on those things first. Is there a way to incorporate a dog park in the project if a dog park doesn't exist or in the works when this project gets underway? I think from the very beginning, OISA's, I think everyone's been really receptive to this. Our message has always been, let's be a partner and what's best for everyone. So if that means having a dog park there, and the city really, really wants that as part of a comprehensive facility, then sure, yeah. I think as long as we adhere to safety for a lot of people being around, which is normal for a dog park anyway, responsible owners, by all means, we would love to have our pet friends around. And what have been the yearly costs for maintenance and repairs of other complexes? It really depends if it's 20 fields, 5 fields, 3 fields. But generally speaking, what we are looking at for the 7 fields, not talking about replacement of assets, but just operational costs, it's around $1 million a year. And a local good example of that is in Medford. How would you propose a site provide access to city features and businesses? How will it drive economic development that we seem to think it will? The good news is there's a lot of precedent around the types of activities that people like to do with youth sports. Cars are involved, so there's gasoline. Eating is involved, so there's restaurants. And then potentially for out of area people, lodging. So if you think about the main things, along with entertainment. So if you think about the main things that drive the economic value, it's lodging, dining, entertainment, retail, travel, and then associated expenses locally. So if you're a business that is in one of those key areas, I'd say that you're definitely more in line and in focus to benefit from this facility than, say, maybe a landscape business, although, hey, landscape needs to occur at the facility as well, potentially. All right, there are a few other questions that were put out that we just think might be best discussed at a later date because we just don't have a lot of information about them. Would it be possible to show an overlay of the urban growth boundary to the east, both now and as it expands? I think talk to folks who are with the city if you want to see just generally where the urban growth boundary is going to be. You don't necessarily know how that question directly relates because we don't know the exact location yet. But what could be the financial impact of the city if we took 50 acres of CPIP off the tax roll? I think that's a good question for the city folks. Are there opportunities to purchase land not in the current city limits that would that we could annex in for the project and not have to remove land on the current tax roll? I think all options are on the table right now. With the urban growth boundary being in the conversation, it certainly presents an opportunity. And what are the different operating structure options to be researched and considered between the city, Cogeo, Clackamas County, Canby Area Park and Recreation District, et cetera? I think most of that's been answered with some of the prior questions, but if there's a more specific question from someone related to any component of that, we certainly can address that. And with that, I think that is the end of the prepared session. Thank you, and I'll open up for additional questions if anyone has any.
I'm turning this back over to the mayor now that he's in attendance.
All right.
Thank you, Patrick. Good to see you. Thank you. Apologize to everyone for my tardiness. The joys of Boone's Bridge and I-5. Conversation for another night. Very good information, and I appreciate you and your team taking the time to kind of collect and answer the questions that we had. I know that the initial schematics and renderings were in our packets at all. Is there a way that we can put them up on the screen just to kind of, I don't know if everybody here has everyone here seen those?
Yeah, they're in the packet, but they weren't
Yeah.
in his slideshow there. Maya's working.
While she's working on that. If not, it's okay. Councilor Davis, you had a question?
No, just a comment. Patrick, thank you. And I've been working with the Park and Rec Committee as well as you for quite some time on this, but maybe for the rest of the council, how did Cogeo come up with Canby?
Yes, good question. So there are 93 members of the Oregon Youth Soccer Association clubs all across the state of Oregon, 11 districts. And the initial recommendation that when we were thinking about one of these complexes, and our advisement was really around how do you service your membership, and how do you do so in a fair way that isn't in necessarily Portland proper. So right now they've operated at Delta Park for a number of years, and they have a lot of historical data around Delta Park. And it's not as accessible as something south of the city for people who are coming from the coast, who are coming from the south, Eugene, Salem, even Bend, in those areas. So the actual location itself being a bit more centralized than it is now was the first guiding factor. The second guiding factor was cost. So in the Portland metro area, a land of at least 25 acres to 30 acres is very, very hard to come by. And the cost of doing so is a lot more prohibitive than going out into an area that has an opportunity to collaborate a bit more with open spaces. The third characteristic that we advised them on was thinking about your partner in the process, which city, which county. And after speaking to a number of different cities and people within the city councils, we really found Canby to be a very, not only friendly city to this idea, but one that really desires the opportunity. And so although those conversations continue to be ongoing, certainly Canby and the folks associated at the city have been very supportive, proactive, and desiring to prioritize this as evidenced by this session tonight. Additionally, we feel like it is a place that really desires to have the economic benefits that would come with this type of opportunity and value that in a way that, again, is prioritized. So with those number of, I would say, majority positive factors, Canby and the surrounding area became one of the most attractive areas for us to initiate those conversations. And that has only gotten better over the about 15 months or so that we've been collaborating together, and continues to do so. And so it's been our continual advice to the Oregon Youth Soccer Association to deepen the project here.
Thank you.
Okay. The renderings are binding.
I think the other component to your question is around the park study that was done, and just identifying the priorities that the consultant identified aligned very nicely with the city. And so that additionally was helpful to the citizens and the city council members to be able to match that, something like this.
Yes, Councilor Stearns.
Thank you for putting the rendering up. This is a generic rendering of just a concept and idea of what typically is a layout for the elements of something like this. So you have some examples of multi-sport fields, fields that can house football, lacrosse, soccer, many different levels of play, softball, baseball. There's a bigger building there on the bottom that is just a generic building, but we thought, hey, if the city is really interested in a multi-use athletic facility of some kind, it could be great to just show that. Swim pool was a big one. Also, dog park could be in that area, as one person asked and requested. But it just gives you a general visual representation of other projects we've done and how we've laid them out. It's also really important to have multiple outlets to parking, not just have one in and out. You can do it, but if anyone's been to a youth sports facility and has not designed well, it can eat into your lunchtime.
You need multiple lots, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The long trek to the furthest field.
Oh, yeah, because, my kid would play at the furthest one away.
Right. Exactly. So when we design them, generally we like to, if it's available and whatever parcel becomes reality, we do our best to have multiple areas, as well as considerations for people who need to park closer for various reasons. things of that nature, access.
So really, the two buildings that you've pictured here in these renderings can kind of just be whatever vision we can cast for those buildings.
Yeah, one of them with the wavy white roof. It is a dream of Oregon Youth Soccer to have an indoor as well as outdoor access to fields and also offices and meeting spaces that could be shared space for the city. So that is the idea with that building. The one down below is exclusively city focused, and both buildings could be city used. But Oregon Youth Soccer wanted to share in a master vision, albeit again that prioritization question, that an indoor facility would be great. They do a lot of training, a lot of meetings, statewide meetings, also indoor soccer, indoor sports.
It could be an aquatic center?
The one on the bottom, we had initial conversations that could be a great place for an aquatic center. Yeah.
Cool, okay.
Yeah. So when we talk about initial build-out costs, Oregon Youth Soccer is really talking about not the indoor buildings, but the fields.
Fields and,
Yeah.
Counselor Stearns,
Okay.
do you have a question?
Yeah, just kind of almost clarification, because, see if I understood this correctly. So what's proposed is a piece of land owned by the city, but leased by OYSA so it's going to be OYSA facility that the city gets to use, or is it city facility that OYSA gets to use? And I always want to I'm trying to conceptualize who owns it, who runs it. I mean, of course, I'm, for frame of reference, using commercial world where maybe somebody owns a property, somebody else leases it, or maybe is it going to be some sort of partnership that is sort of, it's kind of ambiguous in my mind, because it seems like OYSA wants to build the field so that the initial capital outlay, at least for the fields, would be done by them, but for rights to use it when they want. So I just want to make sure clear what in the end, if tomorrow we snap our fingers is done, who owns it and who's going to do what?
Yeah, I had a similar question. The way I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the city would own the property, OYSA builds the facilities, the fields, in lieu of paying a lease payment or a rent. So they get to use it whenever, they get priority scheduling for the fact that they built it out. Is that how I understand it? Is that correct?
Correct. So if you're talking about ownership, the city owns everything.
Yeah, because obviously OYSA is a nonprofit
Correct.
corporation. And of course, I like to think of things kind of legalistic, which so OYSA is going to have some sort of stake in it, but is that going to be perpetual? It's going to be renewed yearly, every 10 years, every 5 years? And what happens if OYSA decides, I've euthanized many organizations, and I know that not all organizations last forever, but city government's going to be much more durable, I think, in the long term than nonprofit. So those are kind of the questions I'm just unclear about, the relationship between the city, OYSA, and how that's going to work out in practice.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to answer that question. First off, anything's possible in terms of organizations going away. Fortunately, Oregon Youth Soccer's been around for a long time, and it's the largest youth soccer organization in Oregon, 52,000 young people. So if we're talking about durability, it's very likely they'll be here in 10 years, let's put it that way. But anything's possible. So I think part of why we've designed what we've designed is also to mitigate risk for the city, which is as long as Oregon Youth Soccer would like to use the facility, they would be able to use the credit of the amount they paid for the build out towards their rent payments. If they go under, then obviously they're not using it anymore, and it's the city's to do what they would like. So it's a little bit of a risk on OYSA for that. But the trade-off for them is they have a guaranteed home to rent. And that's been their biggest challenge, is to have just access to fields. This one complex of 7 fields is not even enough for all the demand they have. They could do 3 of these and fill them up, which is pretty amazing.
So when OYSA is not using the fields, is it become like I could go get some friends and do a pickup game of soccer there, or is it really more restricted than that, where we're going to have to be some sort of pay a lot of money or something to do that? I mean, is it going to be just kind of a city park, or is it going to be something that's a sports facility only, and that people going on there need to have a sports business purpose to be there, so to speak?
Yeah, good question. So I want to make sure I answer your first one, and then I'll answer that one. At no time will Oregon Youth Soccer Association, at least in what we're proposing preliminarily, own anything. We know that when there's incentive to build out with the city in a partnership to share, or basically pay for the upfront costs of the asset, that can incentivize a city to be really motivated to be a great partner. And so that's why they've taken our recommendation to go that direction. The city will own the land. What we propose, the city will pay for the land, but the Oregon Youth Soccer Association will pay for the initial build-out costs. However, that will be owned by the city. So the fields, everything that you see in those renderings, be owned by the city. So let's say the build-out cost is $5 million, just making up a number. The idea would be that would be a $5 million rental credit for Oregon Youth Soccer that they could use and keep a tab with the city managing the complex, and not pay rent, if you will, by having an exchange of that credit until that credit runs out over a number of years. And then they would resume paying rental fees for that. In terms of your second question, it really depends if the city does manage the facility, its own protocols around how it wants to do that. And that would be a balance of the financial sustainability of the facility and access. And so that would really be a conversation at the city level to decide. What we've seen be really successful is having different activities have different access. So if it's school or open play or certain times, the city could open it up for no charge to folks. If there were organized groups that wanted to use it, adult softball, nighttime soccer games, adult leagues, then that would be charged to people in groups like OSA that would be charged. Of course, lean on us if you want some guidance there, but I think that what we've seen as being really successful when the city's managing it is have a standardized protocol around just being balanced in its approach to that, knowing that it would be a community asset.
Okay. Councilor Patton.
Okay, so I'm just gonna forewarn you, I can be a little intense at times, and it's
It's
not for lack of having an interest in this project. I'm very interested, actually. And I've tried to consolidate my thoughts here so I don't go off on crazy tangents. So, first, I just want to say that I'm not opposed to building a complex like this. However, I and others that have come to me since this has all come out feel that there needs to be a real benefit to the city for investing public funds into such a project. It needs to be a good investment of taxpayer money. It needs to be fiscally responsible long-term. It needs to be diverse in its benefits to the community, and it needs to stand the test of time as much as, turf can stand the test of time, right? So, in its current state of these outdoor fields, I and others do not feel that it fits those bills. But bear with me, we're gonna go down this path. So I'm going to ask you some questions and share some thoughts, and then I'm gonna take us down a little bit of a rabbit hole. So,
Let's do it.
No way.
I know, right? Go figure. So the first one you actually answered, so we'll save time with that. The second one refers to sort of the economic stuff. I have done quite a bit of research now online, as much as you can, you have to filter the online stuff. And there is some real conflicting information about selling these sort of facilities as an economic benefit to the community compared to what they actually turn out to be. And as you had said, and as you have said before, the diversification of the sports that you can play in these facilities are key for making that calculus work out. And indoor facilities really add to that diversification. So that's why I was glad to see these in there. So in looking through some of the numbers, and this is going back to your original presentation that you had given to the council in July, I kind of crunched some of these numbers that you had put forward, like $4 million worth of benefit to the community, and then $480,000 in tax benefit to the city. And well, these all look very good. For Canby, they really don't make a lot of sense, because some of it talks about parking, we have free parking. Some of it talks about hotel motel, we don't have a hotel motel yet, although that is something that hopefully something like this would bring up. And because we don't have a sales tax in Canby, any business that is brought into the downtown core helps strengthen the downtown core businesses, but unless a new business opens up or a current business expands, then the city really doesn't see any sort of return on that influx of folks, unless we start charging for parking or those sort of things. So what it comes down to is, does this community want to subsidize youth sports, and to what point? And I think the answer for a lot of people is yes, the community would like to subsidize youth sports. We do it a little bit, but it then has to come down to just how much they're willing to subsidize it out of taxpayer money. For the Medford complex, which is being used a lot in comparisons here, it was, the preliminary information we got was that they actually built that facility themselves, and so they control it 100%. And for them, the build out of the facility was $33 million, and in today's money, it said that it would be about $50 million. They said that annual operating costs for their facility is about $1.5 million, and they get about $500,000 in revenue from renting out those fields. So that leaves them subsidizing the facility by $1 million through the general fund and various taxing mechanisms that the city has available to it. Now, I will just point out that Medford's economy is very different from Canby's. Medford is essentially kind of like an island in southern Oregon, where they draw from the coast and Bend and all, in that sort of area. And they're a much larger city than we are, so they have a lot of the, they have the hotels and the restaurants and the larger shopping and stuff that we don't have in our proximity to Portland and Vancouver. So as we look at those economic numbers, I'm tempted to just ball them up and throw them out and say, really what we need to focus on is, what do we think is best for Canby? What is the best investment of city funds, and how do we make this work long-term? In your presentation, you had said that the OISA would be responsible for the build-out of the fields and lights and the 15% maintenance fund in lieu of a retro credit. Okay, so I did some math here. And if we use Medford as a model, and granted this is going to be pretty dirty math, at $1.5 million for maintenance a year and $500,000 in rental income, we're using those as our base numbers. You had said that OISA would use the facility about 14% of the time. So, and we're going to roughly say that this build out would be about $33 million. So 14% of $500,000 is $3,571 per year that OISA would be getting as credit to put towards their use of the facility. At $33 million, that is 9,241 years worth of credit to use the facility free of charge. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not even turned on.
Of course you're not.
Of course I'm not. And so essentially, you'd be using the facility for free till the year 121,065, which is a really long time.
Forever.
Forever, yes. Which to me is fine, but we have to make this calculus work, is what I'm trying to get at. When it comes to the profitability of the thing, in a lot of the different ones that I've read up on online all over the country, most of the time, they're really not particularly profitable. There's going to be some need for the community to subsidize the facility. Only in the best of scenarios, which was some complex back east in Grant Park Sports Complex in Westerfield, Indiana. They are extremely profitable, but for some reason their city is looking to sell the facility off because they want to get out of it. And so to me, that just sort of makes me wonder how we make this all work. So let me just double check here. You kind of already answered that if it takes more than a few years, like 4 to 6 years to build this whole thing out, you folks would be willing to do that if it makes sense to you. Is that correct? Did I understand that correct?
Yeah, it would be investing in the long-term permanent home of Canby.
Okay, awesome. So then another thing, one of the questions that was on the last slide was what could be the financial impact to the city if we took 50 acres out of the CPIP and off the tax rolls? And I think that's something important that we have to figure out in this calculation, is because that industrial land is of a high tax value, and when we figure out the calculation of cost, we have to figure out how much tax the city and other taxing districts like the school and the fire district and stuff would have gotten out of that land, and figure that into the calculus to see if it makes sense, okay? So to that point, even though it sounds like I'm not really interested in doing this, I really am, and this is why. So here we're gonna go down the rabbit hole. As you currently have it drafted, you're covering about 6 sports: soccer, football, baseball, softball, lacrosse, and if anybody's interested, you could probably do rugby as well. Rugby is becoming more and more popular. And with those 6 sports, it really doesn't make any sense. Now, if you figure in an indoor facility that you could do 4 to 5 courts on, now you catch basketball, volleyball, which, by the way, I'm biased to volleyball because I've been a volleyball official for 12 years. And so I do know the pains of doing tournaments, working at tournaments. Wrestling, cheer, dance, and gymnastics. And so now you have increased the number of sports that you can capture by just adding a structure of that size. If you do outdoor basketball courts, now you hit that twice as much. Sand volleyball, right? We just keep adding components onto this to make this more diverse. Now, when it comes to this flex space, one thing that I have learned in things that I've been doing with other organizations is that in the Portland metro area or around it, there is not any good options for mid-range or mid-level convention center space. I went to a Nut Grower Society convention down at a Knife River facility, and it was like dirt floors. It was horrible. It was in a tent. And so I would say that if you could build a building like that so that the floors could be either pulled up or covered so that you can then use it for conventions or banquets and stuff, now we really start to tap into the economic value where we can start to have conventions, and then now you're using the facility more during the week. And I can tell you that if you start having conventions in your city, that's going to entice a hotelier to come in. And then all of a sudden we have like the West Coast Produce Association having their thing, and then they get a chance to swing over and tour Caruso Produce and Dragonberry. And now we really begin to build that economic engine. And to your point with a pool, it's been said to us many times that if we do an aquatic center, we really need to have 2 different pools, a lap pool and a rec pool, because they all want different temperatures. So now you add in swim meets and water polo, and maybe you put in a track and field area. And now you've captured all the sports, and now you start to tap into the fact that OSAA, which is the high school sports body, they have trouble finding places to do state championships because most of the time they do them at schools, and they have to try and do it at a school when it's on either vacation or during a teacher work day or whatever, a planning day, when the students aren't there. So I think what I would say is we really need to blow this up. We really need to look at this as to say, how can we partner with you to maybe entice you folks to help the city raise a bit more money to fit this larger dream, knowing that it will benefit you folks, because in 5 years after it's built, the city won't be like, well, we need to level this whole facility because we do not have the $1 million in our budget to subsidize it every year, okay? So I think that's pretty much it.
Jason, there was one other component that you and I talked about the other night.
What did I miss?
Well, it was in regards to just the life safety features.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't write that down. So, the Clackamas County Fairgrounds, or the Clackamas County Event Center, is building a building where it's going to have generators and scrubbers in case there's an emergency. This flex space building could be used for that as well. We could do something similar with that, so that way if there's, animals and stuff can be evacuated to the fairgrounds, and then we can evacuate people and more people up there. Put in a commercial kitchen so that if people are coming in to do these events and they want to have food there, now all of a sudden our economic development department is like, hey, you're renting the kitchen, and here is a list of businesses within the city of Canby that do catering. And these are our preferred caterers, right?
I like that idea.
And then you put in the meeting spaces in a fitness center for folks who are of a senior age here in Canby, and you start to build that out. And I think that even though that sounds like a crazy plan, I feel that that is something that this community and I would be able to get behind in investing city money in and seeing that long-term down the path. So I think that was it. Oh, yeah, and like playgrounds, because in the original one, you had a playground. That wasn't in this one. I will tell you right now, I'm not a fan of putting a dog park here. Dog parks and kids,
Dogs love kids. Kids love dogs.
And then you get into the liability aspect of it, because a facility like this, and that's another thing that I remember in reading all this, is that liability is a huge thing. And so the city is really going to have to take into consideration, the costs involved in the liability aspect of having all these people doing physical activities and busting ankles. And I mean, I was working lines at a volleyball championship years ago, and a girl comes down and hits the floor just right, and bam, compound fracture right on the court. And so when you're out doing this stuff, that happens, and then we have to worry about liability. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with all this. It kind of gives you folks something to think about as you go forward, and lets you know that even though I can be a bit ornery at times, I think that we could make something like this work, but we just need to think way bigger than what we're doing right now, and think 5 to 8 year build out on this whole thing. So that's all I had.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you very much. Just appreciate the thoughtfulness and the time that you are taking to go deeper into this. I don't take that as anything other than interest.
Well, we noodle things here in Canby.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And that's another reason why we wanted to partner with this city, is because you want to have those conversations. So to talk about the depth, I know we would advise OISA, if the city had an appetite to go bigger, we would absolutely welcome that. I think the initial thought and concept here was put forth because it's the lane that OISA knows. it's also a lower stakes financial risk. And the way that we would advise them would be, in our opinion, at least sustainable financially. So what we normally do is we go out and get MOUs and interests from groups so that preliminarily we can understand beyond the stakeholder what those financial commitments would be. In the city of in the region, the metro area region, fields we know are renting at a minimum of $100 an hour and up from there. So the number of hours that just OYSA would rent alone, it would far exceed, I think, the 3,000 or whatever the number was there. And that's just one stakeholder. And I know with inventory, based on conversations that they've had with other sports, that we could get a nice list going before we did any sort of build out. So we should work on that together to, I think, help you with feeling a bit more comfortable about the sustainability of it. The other thing people don't think about is the sort of 1 or 2 layers of economic impact beyond the actual activity that occurs. I think Canby is actually an exceptionally strong candidate here. I believe this would be a place where people would want to move to with their families and grow the housing market with this type of resource. And then that has auxiliary effects of jobs, transportation, et cetera, in the city. And so although it might not be as obvious that the facility would directly generate that, I think that's a community asset here in Canby that could be argued would have an impact on that side of things for folks.
Well, and I will just throw out too, when it comes to the financing part of this thing, we got a very nice letter from the folks at the Chamber of Commerce. And I would say if they feel so strongly about it, then I would be wondering if they would be willing to pitch in some money to help build this thing, and then talk about long-term donations and naming rights and stuff to some of the businesses, not only here in Canby, but in the region as well.
Yeah. And that's our job to, when we get deeper into it and have a site identified, then we start to have the ability to understand what those numbers are. Until we have that secured, it's a little bit premature, but definitely if and when we do reach that point, we'd love to sit down with you and work on that together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Stern, do you have another question?
Not really a question, just a comment. I guess more towards the council than towards you, but the thing that I think we don't really have time for right now, but I think a serious discussion needs to be had on what is the role of the city government in doing these kinds of things, because there's a lot of good ideas, there's a lot of good businesses that could succeed, a lot of projects that could happen, but I personally am of the opinion that as much as possible, the city should stick to the basics, and if the city becomes a sports manager, that may, in my mind, exceed what we as a city should be doing. And I think this conversation, we should have a conversation, it's come almost more philosophical than anything else, because obviously we could build an airport. We could build, there's a lot, if we're thinking outside the box, we could do all kinds of stuff, but the question is that something we should be doing? And I think that we have to have that conversation before I would feel comfortable going ahead with it, because even if it was to work out and be a perfectly successful economic thing, there's that question is this the proper role of a taxpayer, funded taxpayer, guaranteed taxpayer, in the end insured activity? So that's all I kind of want to say, but it's not really a question, but sort of comment to the council.
That's a great comment, and I'll just reiterate, I think that dovetails into some of the question answers, and OYSA is open to any scenario. Yeah. And so confident if we know what the city's position is, there's a scenario that OYSA be interested in. Yeah.
Great. Patrick, thank you very much. I'm sure there's more to come. definitely think there's been some great conversation here this evening, so really do appreciate it, you coming out and presenting this, so thank you very
Of
much.
course, of course.
I feel like I have a better handle on what's going on now.
Good.
Thank you.
Good, yeah, and it's in progress. So we'll definitely keep the conversation with the city going as there are milestones that are met, especially with any sort of land identification as a next step in this, which will bring more clarity for everyone.
Is there any next step that the council would like to see?
I think for me, I would like to see just how, like, what some of the.
Your
Oh, no,
microphone,
fine.
please.
I would like to see like what some of those layers would look like. You know, because if I hadn't made it clear before, I will just state it again. It needs to be a much bigger project for me to really get behind and sell to my constituents, I guess you would want to say. But, you know, I think those are some of the things, like what is the possibility of doing some of those elements, like, and what that would phase out to be. Specifically the pool, because we have a big problem with the pool. We're investing some money in it now to try and update it and modernize it, but it's putting lipstick on a pig. And we gotta get it moved out of there. We gotta get something. The community has been paying into that thing for many years, and they've been doing so expecting something more. And I think we need to deliver on that. And then, of course, the big thing with decommissioning the pool will be just that, decommissioning it. It is our responsibility to then fill in the hole. So if that means we have to be out there with pitchforks and shovels and wheelbarrows, Jerry
All that
will,
dirt that you use, that you have to scrape to make the field?
Yeah, there you go.
Fill the
we'll
pool.
move it into the pool hole. There you go. When we dig the old hole, we'll fill in, when we dig the new hole, we'll fill in the old hole.
Yeah, I heard skateboarders love pools as well.
Well, there you go.
But just to directly address your thought, OSA would love the idea of having even more diversity in that area of usage, because it would only enhance the space. So,
Okay.
very open to any of those things.
Last question, and then we're going to break here.
Yeah, no problem. More of a comment to answer the city administrator's question. First of all, I appreciate the staff time and the work done by staff and the cooperation by staff with Patrick. Great cooperation. The one piece, a few things would be, could city staff look into funding mechanisms if we had an offer or we find out a piece of land that would work? And what would be our funding options? The council would need to know that, especially if we had that confront us, so we'd need to know that information. What are those funding mechanisms for the purchasing of the land? And then, of course, we need to have further discussion around the whole maintenance piece. In other words, the long-term maintenance, and have discussion around that and what our options are for that as well.
Well, we're happy that those are the next questions. It shows, further progress in where we even were in the summer. So very good stuff. Thank you all for your time.
Patrick, thank you. Oh,
Thank you.
If I may, Brian Shotun, the mayor or the city manager of Medford, they are preparing a more detailed pro forma on their project. And when we get that, I'm happy to share that with you as well.
That'd be great.
I don't know, he has also indicated that he's willing to make a presentation if you would like to receive a presentation from the city of Medford on that project as well. So those are a couple of other things that are coming.
Okay, great.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much.
I will end our work session. We do have a city council meeting starting here as close to 7 as we can, but council definitely needs to take a personal break, so we will cut away and come back shortly. So, thank you. Pledge of Allegiance, please. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this great community. I ask that you bless this community, and I ask that you bless this building and everyone inside of it. I ask that we come away from tonight with some better clarity, some better understanding, and an ability to be a community. I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Never wavering.
Okay, next on the agenda this evening is citizen input and community announcements.
Do you want me to read the Carol Palmer letter for you?
Oh, that might be work. So there's two pieces, well, a couple of things. One, we have received a letter from a resident and been on a number of our city boards, Carol Palmer, regarding, we had a work session this morning on the development and possibility of doing a sports/recreation complex here in Canby. So that was what our work session was at 6 o'clock. So as you were filing in, that's what we were in the middle of. So I'm going to have Council President Hemsley read this letter into the record so that I can quench my thirst.
There you go. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. March 20th, 2024, to City Council members from Carol Palmer regarding sports complex and compliance with ORS 358.653. The staff report on the proposed sports complex does not mention compliance with ORS 358.653, a statute that outlines what public entities must do to, 1, protect historic artifacts during construction activity, on undeveloped public land, and 2, preserve publicly owned structures that are over 50 years old. It is likely that development of the sports complex will impact both archaeological artifacts and historic structures. In the area being considered for the UGB expansion, I have had conversations with landowners who are aware of indigenous graves, trails, and artifacts on their land. Many of the structures in the area exceed 50 years of age, and more than a few have county historic landmark designation, which will not disappear if and when the city purchases the property. To address the item 1, the city should contact the state archaeologist, there we go. I couldn't say that word, sorry. I can't word tonight. As soon as the exact site has been determined. That office can access their non-public database to determine if the area includes known sites of archaeological material. If that is the case, the city must work with the state archaeologist to determine the next steps. I have some contend that the city's only responsibility involves having an archaeologist on site during development in case of construction activity uncovers potential artifacts. That may be true in some states, but it is not in the state of Oregon. It's not its only requirement. As for item 2, prior to altering, selling, or demolishing a site over 50 years old, the city needs approval from SHPO, the process the city uses when selling the Holly Street City Hall, which, thanks to Renata Mengelberg's diligence and insistence on compliance, went well. It is very possible that the city will need to do mitigation, again, as happened with the City Hall. Mitigation can be expensive and should be budgeted. If the property in question is a designate historic landmark, then alterations, demolitions must go through the public hearing process. If the property has not been annexed, the first step will be approval by the City Historic Review Board. Approval for demolition is very difficult to achieve without appeals and big-time mitigation requirements. My suggestion, make sure you know what you are getting into before you buy. The historic sites database has a filter that can be used to identify the county's designated sites. It is a big list and will need to be reduced to those properties in the proposed complex footprint. The county planning department should be able to be of help. In In terms of the expanded UGB, the difficulty in getting demolition approval for the city or a private property owner will present challenges. It might be prudent to have the list in hand prior to finalizing the UGB boundaries. I urge you to do the right thing and follow state law. I am personally interested and will be following this project. Carol Palmer.
Great. I'm sure Carol will watch this later, so thank you, Carol, for
Thank
the
you,
letter, and we will add these items to the list of pieces to look into for sure.
Yeah, those are good points to be made. Thank you, Carol.
Okay, so citizen input and community announcements. So this is an opportunity for all y'all here, or anyone in the community, to address the mayor or the council, we'll say the mayor tonight, on non-agenda items. If you're attending in person, you can please complete one of these yellow cards. They're back on the podium there. She's holding them up there. Please fill it out and bring it to Maya, who is our city recorder, and she will make sure that I get them. Because I wasn't sure how many cards I would get. Normally I allow 3 minutes for comments to the council. I will continue that this evening, so it'll be 3 minutes to the council and myself. If you are interested in zooming in because you can't be here, please reach out to our city recorder on the day of the council meeting by 4:30, and we will make sure that you are getting an invite so that you can zoom in. Are there any Zoomies that need to address us? Okay. The first yellow card I have is for Pat Shower. National Vietnam Veterans Day. Pat, where are you hiding? Oh, there he is.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Shower.
Hi, Pat.
If I make it okay.
No,
You're
Sit
fine.
down.
you absolutely can sit down.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Hobson, distinguished council people. My name is Pat Shower, and I'm here tonight to speak on the National Vietnam War Veterans Day on March 29th. The Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act of 2017 was signed into law by 45th U.S. President Donald J. Trump, designating every March 29th as National Vietnam War Veterans Day. March 29th is a fitting choice for a day honoring Vietnam veterans. It was chosen to be observed in perpetuity as March 29th, 1973 was the day United States Military Assistance Command, Vietnam was disestablished, and also the last day U.S. combat troops departed Vietnam. In addition, on and around this same day, Hanoi released the last of its acknowledged prisoners of war. The United States of America Vietnam War commemoration honors all veterans who served on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces at any time from November 1st, 1955 to May 15th, 1975, regardless of location and their families. The Department of Veterans Affairs estimates that today there are more than 7 million U.S. Vietnam veterans living in America and abroad, along with 10 million families of those who served during this time frame. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pat. I appreciate it very much.
Mr. Mayor, I'm the shadow of Pat Shower, Irene Brashears of
Hi, Irene.
the DFW Auxiliary, and on behalf of our DFW Postal Auxiliary to commemorate the March 29th, 51st now, anniversary of the National Vietnam Veterans Recognition Day. We'd like to invite you all to a no-host luncheon like we did last year at 11 o'clock at the Burgerville on March 29th, and we'll have a little token floral tribute placed at the memorial. And I hear it's going to rain, so it might be a mad dash from the memorial to the Burgerville for our 11 o'clock no host. And timing is everything. It's Good Friday going into the Easter services and stuff. So 11 o'clock, I know a lot of churches have Good Friday services at 12. So just remember our Vietnam veterans, to thank them and their families at that time. So thank you. 11 o'clock, Burgerville on the 29th. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Irene. So since I have a very captive audience, I will say this about Miss Irene as she's leaving. Miss Irene has been a longtime Canby citizen, Canby resident, has been integral in the involvement of most anything in our community, veterans affairs related, and she was, I think, rated Canby's #1 postal service worker. So. Okay, next up I have Celeste Graves, which will be followed by Christy Smith.
You want both to come up at the same time?
No, it's one at a time, fine. Hi, Christy. Just to come and sit down, state your name. The timer should be in front of you for 3 minutes. You've got lights that'll tell you when you're finishing.
Wow, this is like Jeopardy.
It's kind of like Jeopardy. All right, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Celeste Graves, and I go by she, her pronouns. I live here in Canby, and with my partner, we raise 2 kids, and we love the city of Canby. Thank you so much, Mayor, for what you do. Thank you, city council members, for being here and doing what you do. I really do appreciate your serving. I'm not serving on the council, so thank you. Thank you for listening to the people in your community, and thank you for the sacrifice of your time and your thoughts and making hard decisions. Really appreciate it. Today, my time, I wanted to just talk to you and all my fellow human beings here a little about what Transgender Day of Visibility means for me and like kind of what's on my mind today as we celebrate on March 31st. History has shown us that supporting minorities has only bettered our communities. Epic leaders, revolutionaries, those were minorities. And Canby is home to many transgender and gender non-conforming people. And I know we have all interacted with transgender individuals, like whether we realize it or not, like we're here. And I want to say to those people that I see you, and I'm grateful that you're part of my community. And the contributions that you have made to this city are so appreciated. So I just want to say thank you. Transparents, thank you for raising a family. Thank you for taking on that responsibility to like support a child and do all the things that comes with that. Thank you for my trans healthcare workers. Like, thank you for showing up. Thank you for like being there with us through the quarantine. Thank you for like saving my granny. Thank you for like being there in the moment when I needed your life-saving help. Thank you so much. Thank you to my trans creatives. Oh my gosh, your poems and songs and your art, like I'm just so grateful that that's part of this community, and thank you for inspiring all of us to like share our own weird creative things. And to my trans family members and friends, thanks for showing up for school, fixing my car and changing my tires and like serving me my food and my coffee. Thank you for trying out for sports and running your businesses so I can buy things I want and need. It's pretty great. Thanks for volunteering. Thanks for volunteering, picking up garbage and like being there in our kids' classrooms and helping them out. Thank you for like volunteering at like park days and holidays. Your existence is valued. Your perspective is so needed. And your courage is beautiful to me. May we all continue to make Canby a city that values its minorities, works through our differences, and cultivates a vibrant community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Celeste, appreciate it. Christy Smith and then Stephanie Boyce.
I'd actually prefer to stand. Is that okay?
Yep, just make sure that you're closer to being in front of the mic as much as you can.
Okay. because I kind of wanted to talk to the community too. So my name's Christy. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the president of Canby Pride. I'm here today because we asked the council to do a proclamation. It was declined, so we're going to do it ourselves. Whereas observed annually on March 31st, International Transgender Day of Visibility is a day set aside to celebrate the countless contributions the transgender and non-binary people have made across the world, including here in Canby. Whereas transgender and non-binary individuals in our community throughout the country and around the world have collectively worked to overcome gender, race, sexuality, and class adversity for generations, combating social stigma, demanding visibility, and working tirelessly towards equality and fairness for all people. And whereas today, we are reminded that every Canby resident deserves to stand boldly in their truth without fear of persecution, judgment, or discrimination. And whereas we recognize that there's still so much work that needs to be done to ensure that our transgender and non-binary family members, friends, and neighbors are treated equitably and with dignity under the law in our community and in the country. And whereas Transgender Day of Visibility is an opportunity for this city to commit to partnering with the community to address challenges and invest in city infrastructure that furthers this work. Now, therefore, we, the community, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as International Transgender Day of Visibility here in Canby and around the world.
Thank you, Christy. Stephanie Boyce, and then Rachel Plyler.
I'm Stephanie Boyce. I'd like to speak to the city council and about a group of marginalized individuals in our community, albeit a small group. The individuals feel harassed by those in authoritative positions within the school walls. Concerns about the harassment appear to be falling on deaf ears, the deaf ears of those who claim to advocate for the student body. The individuals I speak of belong to a group called Turning Point USA, a group at the high school, a group that strives to uplift this community through Veterans Affairs, a group that wants to educate their fellow students on their students' rights. The TPUSA group educates and promotes inclusivity, freedom, free market, and limited government. I am asking the council for a proclamation, a day devoted to set aside for this marginalized group in our community, an official day to proclaim or a decree or edict to recognize this specific group, Turning Point USA. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
For the consideration.
I will address that piece. If there are pieces regarding proclamations and whatnot, please make sure that they get sent to our city recorder, Maya Burnham. And it usually helps if we have language or a pre-written proclamation language so that I can read through that. I'm actually the one that decides on the proclamations. Council does not. And so she'll make sure that I get that so that a judgment call can be made on that. So that's kind of our process in that regards. All right, so it looks like I have Rachel in front of me, and then I have Audrey Barnett next. Good evening.
Awesome. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Council, for your time tonight. My name is Rachel Plyler. If it's not obvious, I'm here tonight with Don't Mess With Our Kids. We're a grassroots movement here in the area that is actually spreading across the nation that's made up of moms, grandmas, aunts, uncles, dads, brothers. We see the dangers of the gender and sexuality agenda that's being sold to our kids, and we're choosing to stand up and say enough is enough. We actually came out tonight because we heard what was going on here in Canby, and we actually just wanted to publicly say thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. We support you, and we wanted to thank you for standing for the truth. And I wanted to say that your courage to stand in this hour matters more than you may realize. And that is because growing up, I was a tomboy who grew to experience same-sex attraction, which led to a same-sex relationship. But 7 years ago, I encountered the true love of Jesus that told me he didn't make a mistake when he made me. He radically saved my life and set me free, and I actually stand before you here today fully confident in my feminine body and identity. And I cannot imagine growing up today and experiencing what I did and being told that I was in the wrong body and I needed to alter it to match my feelings. If we continue with this agenda, it's we, the adults, we're supposed to be the protectors and the defenders of children. We're at fault for the fallout that's coming. I see a generation that's coming of young people who are going to look to us and ask, why didn't you protect me? But our movement is just here to say that's not going to happen on our watch. All across the nation, there's girls who love sports. There's girls who don't like dresses. That was me. Girls who are tomboys who are being convinced they're in the wrong body. But I stand before you tonight as living proof that only because of Jesus, change is actually possible. And so the more we place certain agendas on a pedestal in our communities, the more we steal opportunities for girls to be girls, even if they're tomboys, for boys to be boys, even if they're more feminine, without the consequences of confusion, of potential castration, mutilation, and ultimately, in a lot of cases, regret. And it's my duty as both a Christian and an American to exercise my First Amendment right and stand tonight for the truth that our movement believes, that God created male and God created female. And so in light of all this, I actually believe that Canby is being used to shift culture and even protect the kids and the youth in this community. And for that, we actually just wanted to say thank you and let you know that this movement is with you, we're behind you, and we appreciate what you're doing here in Canby. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Audrey Barnett and then Sean Varwick.
Hi, my name is Audrey Barnett, and I was sitting over there actually thinking, should I cut some things out? Because I felt it was kind of harsh, but I'm a truth teller, and that's who I am, and so I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm representing a group of no less than 500 moms and dads locally who stand for freedom in Canby for their kids. I've lived in Canby for about 20 years, and I have 4 children. 3 were born and raised here, and all have attended Canby schools. My family has been extremely blessed to live in a community where I felt safe to let my kids walk to the park, to school, virtually anywhere, unaccompanied by an adult, to play or hang out with their friends, not worried about their safety at all. My kids are also mixed race and have always been included and treated no differently than any other kid. Never had to defend them against any discrimination. So I can attest to the safety and inclusivity that are currently active in our city. I know that there is pressure on the city to acknowledge Canby Pride's Transgender Day of Visibility proclamation, and I'm here to bring some facts to your attention about what that acknowledgement will mean. Fact number 1, a proclamation is a declaration of will. The will is directed or influenced by the judgment. The understanding or reason compares different objects operating as motives. In other words, we reason with respect to the value or importance of things. When we then judge which is to be preferred, and then we will to take the most valuable. Fact number 2, trans LGBTQIA+, that's 7 completely different identities plus. What does the plus mean? Did you know that there are over 112 listed identities, sexual identities that is? It would take much longer than 3 minutes to read them all, but it doesn't stop there. The list is non-exhaustive according to my research. It says that you can change, you can add flux or fluid to anything and create the orientation that best describes you. I want to talk a minute about one sexual identity that this Trans Day of recognition would open the door to, of inclusion, and that's MAPS. MAPS are minor attracted persons or pedophiles. Once the City of Canby proclaims their will of agreement and proclaims Trans Visibility Day, we will be opening the floodgates of agreement by inclusion to a confused, fueled ideology. Will Canby continue to be the desirable, family-focused, safe place to live in when MAPS feel comfortable hanging around in the community park? Or when grown men who identify as virtually anything they want are in the restrooms of those same parks with our little girls? What will we tell our children when they're grown and living through this new nightmare? How will we defend the choices we make today that will shape their futures, our futures, the future of Canby? Mayor Hodson, you are choosing bravery over comfort, contrary to what they're saying about you. We support your choice to stand for truth and the value of true safety and inclusion in our city. We need more brave men and women to stand up for our children and families just as you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. My last card is Mr. Varwig. Good evening, Sean.
Good evening. It is evident that our political landscape is often rife with dissent and criticism. Yet amidst the noise and the chaos of voices seeking to tear down, there are those who stand firm, driven not by self-interest or personal gain, but by a genuine commitment to serve and uplift their community. Mayor Hodson, you are one of those people. And I'm honored to sit here before you to express my profound gratitude and unwavering support for your dedicated leadership. In a world where it's far too easy to sit back and criticize, I'm here to tell you that you have exemplified what it truly means to lead with integrity and purpose. Your dedication to our city knows no bounds, as evidenced by the countless hours that you have devoted to the betterment of Canby. From early morning walks and coffee meetings, to late night discussions, council meetings, county meetings, and beyond. You have sacrificed precious moments with your family to ensure that the needs and concerns of our community are heard and addressed. But your commitment extends far beyond the walls of our city hall. You are a familiar face on the streets of Canby, engaging with residents, listening to their hopes and fears, and working tirelessly to find solutions to the challenges we face. I have stood with you at hours of the night when most people are sleeping, and watching you yearn for the success of our businesses and our residents. Your approachability and willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue have, in my opinion, fostered a sense of unity and collaboration within our community, reminding us that we are all in this together. It's easy for critics to focus on the perceived shortcomings or missteps of our leaders, but what they fail to see is the immense responsibility that comes with governing. Mayor Hodson, you understand that leadership is not about seeking popularity or avoiding criticism. It's about making tough decisions that prioritize the well-being and prosperity of all citizens of Canby. Your unwavering dedication to serving the greater good, even in the face of adversity, is a testament to your character and integrity. While some may choose to fixate on one issue or aspect of your leadership, it's important to recognize the broader impact of your work. You are not simply focused on appeasing a select few, rather you are committed to representing the interests of all residents of Canby, ensuring that our city continues to thrive and prosper for generations to come. So I'd like to take this opportunity to express gratitude to you, Mayor Hodson, for your selfless service, tireless work ethic, and unwavering dedication to our community. I hope we can stand together in support of your leadership, knowing that together we can build a brighter future for Canby. While I can't speak for everyone, on behalf of those that are grateful citizens of our city, I thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your dedication, and thank you for your unwavering commitment to making Canby the best that it can be.
Thank you, Sean. That's all that I have here regarding citizen input and community announcements. We are going to move forward in our agenda. You are all very welcome to stay and watch how all this gets done. If you choose to leave, that is fine as well. I totally appreciate that. Thanks for coming. Please make a friend on your way out. I will give us a minute or two for those that want to leave. Okay, council, next up on the agenda is the consent agenda, which include the approval of the March 6, 2024 City Council regular meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda that includes the minutes of the March 6, 2024 City Council regular meeting.
Second. Motion's been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Maldonado to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes. 6-0. Moving into item number 4, ordinances and resolutions. So first up is ordinance number 1618, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Field Turf USA Incorporated in the amount of $1,441,540.50 for turfing and lighting Maple Street Park infields. This is a second reading. And so again, just as a recap for those of you here and at home, so our last meeting has been a project that the Park and Rec Committee and city staff have been working on for quite some time. And basically, as it's described, we're turfing the infields at both baseball/softball fields. We are putting in lights to hopefully spur some, evenings, adult softball activity, and some year-round play and more attractiveness for tournaments into our community. Did I leave anything out, Eileen?
Just that we just passed out some questions or some answers to some questions that you asked last week. So if you would like Jerry to go over those.
I would love to have Mr. Nelzine come to the podium or the table.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. There was some questions asked at the last meeting. We put them in the staff report, and then I worked with our Parks Chair to add a little bit more extra information. Barry did some of this research for us on this to just kind of break it out to look at what the maintenance needs are on, I think, Councilor Stearns, you had some questions on it. And so I'm here, I think, Parks Chair is here, Barry Johnson, and Ryan Oliver. If any of us have any more questions, we're here to answer them.
Okay, so we're looking at, turfing the fields for both fields. We're looking at $500,254. And that was about kind of what you explained 2 weeks ago to us, and that the next piece on there is the lighting of the fields, which you had explained was probably the biggest expense, which is true, at $62,000. And then adding lights to the path that runs around the fields and that park, scoreboards, and then installation of those.
Just to add to that, Mayor, Barry's added the scoreboards. That's not in the contract price.
Okay.
And so that's something, if we wanted to go down an avenue later, we would have to address it. But
Okay.
the top three are what we're doing, and that's, the path lights is a bid alternate. We could take it on, but the neighborhood meeting we had, that was kind of a request from them, so.
No, I know that, that was a big request out of the neighbors and users.
The scoreboards and the installation kind of been conversation going on that once we get the project going, if that's something we wanted to look into, I want to work with Parks Advisory on and before we bring anything like that back.
A future enhancement.
I mean, it just kind of seems like a good idea to me, but it kind of came after the fact. We don't want to slow this project down again, so.
No, totally agree with you on that piece, so. And that seems like a piece of the project that could be added on later.
It could be added like as a change order real easy if we decided to do it. It would probably come back before we decided any of that. But if it interests the council, I would love to bring it back.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that one, maybe unless there's a consensus piece up here on that one, but I appreciate that.
Yep.
Councilor Stearns, do you have a question or comment?
Two questions. One question is the lighting, what is the useful life of the lighting? In other words, how long is it going to last?
It's LED, so I don't have the exact full lifespan, but what it is there's thousands of little bulbs and they just slowly wear out over years. So it's a long time. All of the LED stuff we've been converting to in the downtown, our street lights like you see out here, those are 12 years old and still burning bright. It's a long lifespan, but I could find that out for you. And
Probably 25 years?
Oh, I would think all of that easy, yeah.
So,
Councilor Molinado, you probably have experience.
General LEDs will run a lifespan of 200,000 hours.
Yeah.
Another question I have,
$200,000.
and just to understand the
What if it's
project a
only
little better.
$199.99?
So the lighting on the field Is that going to be like a switch accessible to anybody who wants to play late? Or is that something that you have to get advance permission to do that?
That is correct, and it'll be kind of similar, it'll be even more strict than our pickleball courts. So there'll be a process for that, so that people just aren't out turning them on and off. And they got a lot of different mechanisms for this thing too, so that like during the end, when it's slowing down, get closer to, I think 10 o'clock's our end time, the lights even start dimming a little bit to tell people that they're going out. But no, this would only be used for, the events.
Okay. And so my other, I guess, is a comment, but I don't know if that's best for the discussion phase or just right now.
Yeah.
Okay, how about if I just make a motion so we can get to discussion?
Well, but there's other questions, I think, yes?
Oh, okay.
No?
I mean, it can be done in the motion or whatever. I'm not going to oppose this.
Okay. I guess we'll take a motion.
Okay, well then, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 1618, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Field Turf USA Incorporated in the amount of $1,441,540.50 for Maple Street Park infield turf and lighting.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Davis to adopt ordinance number 1618, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to execute a contract with Field Turf USA Incorporated in the amount of $1,441,540.50 for turfing and lighting of Maple Street Park infields. Okay, discussion. Go ahead.
I thought about this a lot, and it's sort of a policy question more than a factual question. So the way I kind of see it is there's a $1.4 million outlay that's going to go out. And this kind of dovetails onto what I was talking about for the sports complex, I think there's a limited number of Canby residents that will be utilizing this $1.4 million. And so the question I think that we need, I think the discussion that needs to happen is how much do we spend on projects that will benefit a few people versus projects that could benefit a lot more people. And I'm talking about things like, I think there's a lot more parks that are not, land that's not developed, and other kinds of things that could be dispersed more through the community. And so it's not really a question on this project in general, but the question is this going to just be benefiting a relatively small group of Canby citizens at the expense of a lot more? And I think that's the same conversation that we need to have when it comes to the sports complex. So
I'll go Davis and I'll come back down here.
Thank you, and thanks for your comments. And before you came on to the council, of course, this has been a long time discussion. And we, in turn, did a Parks Master Plan. And the Parks Master Plan had numerous community input. And Maple Street Park was addressed in that master plan. So we're answering the questions of the citizens and the citizens' input as to what they wanted to see in the Parks Master Plan.
Councilor Patton?
So first, I want to get, one of the things that I had talked about last time was a replacement reserve. And it was pointed out to me that, overall cost is not what it would be to replace. And so in looking at these numbers, I'm assuming that, it says cost to replace an entire skin for both fields is $165,000. That's like the under part of it, correct?
No, just the top. Because
that's the grassy bit.
You got to dig the dirt out, put the gravel in, the base, the media, and then the grass on top. So if you got to take that off and change that small media under it, that's what that cost is.
Oh, that's the media just under the grass?
Just the grass, just the turf.
So the $165,000 is just the grass, the stuff that's brown. Okay. And then it says square foot cost to replace, okay, it's $165,800. To me, I would like to see if that $165,000 is what it actually is to replace the turf. I would like to see a reserve put together that is around that amount, so that as those costs need to come out for replacing the batter's boxes or, the running area and stuff, that's where the money to replace that will come out of as part of the warranty or whatever. But ultimately, after 8 years, we have about $160-some thousand set aside. So heavens forbid a tornado touches down in Canby and it tears it all out, or does serious damage to it, that part can be replaced without having it not be serviceable because we don't have enough money for it. So that to me, I don't know if I can demand that sort of thing as part of this, but I would prefer to see something like that put in there.
So what is the specific ask that you want us to consider?
The ask I want to consider is that over the course of 8 to 10 years, we build a turf replacement reserve that is the equivalent of $166,000 in parks.
So that becomes a budget consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't figure it needed to be baked into this, but that's something that I would like us to consider moving forward.
I guess if there's a consensus of the council for moving forward, if we can factor that in, then yes, I think we could do that. I mean,
is it safe to say from the parks folks, do you think that's unreasonable?
We also have the parks maintenance fee that would be applied to that because it is repair of an existing, surface. So we generate upwards of $500,000 to $600,000, I think, based on parks maintenance fee. So some of that money could go towards, the replacing of the field. Certainly, it's a good alternative.
Yeah. My fear is saying that we could use park maintenance fee money. We already know that the park maintenance fee barely keeps the wheels on the bus now. And if 1 year we need to say, we need $75,000 of park maintenance fee money to do some sort of replacement of it, that will seriously hamper the ability to do stuff elsewhere for that at least year. So that's why I'm thinking if we sort of hedge our bets and have this planned reserve for turf, then we can go from there.
Councilor Patton, can I comment on that? This is going to be our first turf in the city. And, Councilor Sassy's brought it up several times with here and with the Parks Advisory that I think the secret to this too is the master fee schedule. And so once we get this thing up and rolling, we see what we're going to charge or what we're going to do, and we take that money and we make it so that we can replace this when it's time. I don't know, it's an option, or we do parks maintenance fee, I don't know, but.
I think that will help go towards it, but as we just had a conversation on our last thing, if you charge enough to cover the cost to these people, it's going to make it impossible for them to participate. And I don't want to see that.
And that's your guys'
so that's why I'm
decision on
thinking
that,
if it's a mix of those things, but keep that reserve. And then I did want to just touch on something that Councilor Stearns had mentioned. And this is sort of a rub that I have, and you can say whatever you wish. Many of the feelings of many folks in our community is that there has been a consistent drive for this turf field, and that many other thoughts about different parks and things have been put aside in order to push for this to be done. I hope that now that this is going to be done, that some of those other things can be released and start to go, because I do feel the same as Councilor Stearns, that this benefits a small group of people. And if we can start incorporating things like we have the fitness stuff that's going into a park, we have the Dodds Farm Park that's going in, but also start to look at our senior community members and things that can be worked into our parks for those folks, because I think that they are underserved for that sort of stuff. So that is my hope in getting this one checked off the list. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Maldonado and then Councilor Davis.
So I was looking at this and Councilor Patton had actually touched on it. So that's only for the top skin, correct?
Yeah.
And we're looking at a life of the turf, 8 to 10 years, probably starts breaking down about 6 to 7 realistically. And we're looking at $6.12 per square foot. realistically, batter box, baselines, pitcher mound. Rest of it's really not going to break down as quickly. I do agree with Councilor Adden. I believe we should have some sort of reserve. I don't know whether or not it's really going to need to be the 165. I believe we can probably go a bit less than that because it's not going to be the entire section of turf that's going to be replaced consistently. And for Councilor Stearns, I'm a firm believer that if we build things like this, we're going to have, it's going to be used really well, just like the sports complex, just like if we have a new pool, they would be utilized so much more because we don't have it. That's why it's not utilized. That's why we have such a small group of people that would be interested in it because they don't know the value of it until you actually have it in front of you. You can think about it like the old movie, build it, they're going to come.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilor Davis and then Councilor Sassman.
So thank you. I would go to I agree with Jason in regards to building a reserve in the budget, but that's Jerry's job and the city administrator's job to tell us how much money we need in the budget for that. I think they've heard us loud and clear on that as well. In regards to other activities, I feel in a way like I've been remiss in not passing on all the activities that we currently have going in the Park and Rec because we do address most of the people in Canby with the activities that are happening. And we are addressing all the priorities, including the dog park for that. The city administrator has been working very closely with Kathy at the Canby Adult Center. And I attend the Canby Adult Center and bring them up to speed and asking them their needs, plus the city is working with them as well. They will reap some benefits of the Legacy Park project because of how close it is to Hope Village and the Canby Adult Center. And they're very excited about that particular project as well. So we try to solicit as much input as we can from all avenues, either through public hearings, but we are focused on, in regards to the park master plan, in regards to those that have been identified in the park master plan, and we'll continue to focus on those. So I hear you loud and clear, Jason.
Councilor Sassy.
I agree, Jason. I'm the first one for maintenance. We build this stuff and then we can't maintain it. I have done baseball fields and softball fields for years. There's nothing more depressing than to work all week, get those fields set up. Friday night it rains, we lost the whole tournament. When they start a tournament, the 4 teams that are there are playing at 8 o'clock. There's 4 teams right behind them warming up, ready to play. So there could be 120 people right off the bat, serving Starbucks, McDonald's. Lunchtime, they're going back to McDonald's, Carl's Jr., Starbucks again, Cuts Force maybe, backstop. We've needed it forever. And I get the maintenance thing, and I'll be the first one on these guys' throat if we can't maintain it the way it is. I know that softball and baseball have budgets to do these fields. They're not going to have near the maintenance. Let's throw some of that money at it, too. Classic example, if softball spends $10,000 on those fields a year now, you give us 8. Because maintenance is basically down to nothing. Just rake it up, put the surface back in, and you're off and running again. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, sir. I want to go back and talk about the light access for the public. Is that, and I've not been to the pickleball courts at night, is it just a dial lighting switch that the general public can turn on at the pickleball courts? And then what are we looking at for the baseball and softball?
Yeah, the pickleball didn't go as planned. We were going to have it motion activated so that when people weren't there, it didn't come on, but it's on a schedule from dark, and once it gets dusk till I think 10 o'clock, they're just on.
Okay.
But we haven't worked out all the details on the lighting. I mean, these gentlemen are going to know better that use it on that, but I think it's just going to be for events. It's not going to be for the public on that. So unless something was changed on that, but really haven't thought that far ahead on it myself. but it's something that we're going to have to figure out and, sign and make sure it works that way. But it is on a schedule that we can set so that we can control it.
Yeah, I think it might be something to maybe look at or consider. I'll punt it back to the Park and Rec Board maybe to look at. But again, like I look at that piece especially with, as an example, adult softball.
Yeah.
And those can go 9, 10 o'clock. So if the lights are shutting off at 9 o'clock, I mean, pretty much game over. So I don't know. I mean, I'll leave it to the Parks Board, and you're the expert on that stuff, Jerry. I'm not. So I just think about the accessibility.
We worked together on that for the pickleball courts, and it worked out real well, I think. And so I think it'll be a learning curve with signage and a process that we go through, and I feel comfortable all working together to get that figured out so that we don't have any problem with it. We don't have some kids just going out and turning it on at 2 in the morning. No, not that kids wouldn't do it, not that you and I wouldn't do it, Mr. Mayor,
I love gallivanting around Canby at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And turning on lights. Counselor Patton.
One last thing I forgot. If there is a way to like shave some petties or have Jamie fire up the money press in the basement to be able to do the scoreboards and stuff, then I would be very much, I would advocate for doing the scoreboards.
You're into that. I was hoping it would get brought up again.
Yes, to me, if we're making the investment now, it's best to do it now, because the scoreboards are not going to get any cheaper. And so if it's something that there's money that can be found somewhere without jeopardizing something else, I would say, why not? I think it's insane that it's going to cost $35,000 to put an $8,000 or a $4,000 scoreboard up, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, and I think these are safe numbers, but we did come in, the city crew, what I wanted to bring up at a different time, but I'm glad you're excited about this. We're installing some of the storm system, and we have a $30,000 savings on that. So we're under budget on this. So if it is something that we wanted to entertain, we're glad to bring it back. Or we don't really have to bring it back. This is within the authority of the city administrator, just as long as we don't go over 25% of the total cost of the project. I believe, Eileen, is that correct? So if you want to direct the city administrator to look into that, and she could authorize a change order to do that. But we have time because we're not going to start until July 1. But I would like to know if that is a consensus to move forward on that.
Counselor Sass?
I just want to add to that. I think the 35 I think we need to look around for that. That seems pretty high.
That's going to be difficult because we're entering in a contract, they're putting all the conduit, the lighting in, and so.
I hate first-time quotes.
We should have been on this sooner, but we're not. I know Barry wants to come up here so bad. Come on up, Barry.
Come on, Barry.
I'll just yell from here.
No, but no, because then you're not on the camera and you're not on the microphone. It's dangerous coming into these council meetings.
If I was on Parks and Rec, that's the first thing I'd ask you. That's our first bid. We got to be better than that.
I said it's initial quote subject to change, and the change is to be lower, because I got that quote from the field turf representative, and he said, I was aghast that when that quote came in, he said that was way high. So he expects that quote to be lower, but he didn't have a reply back from his other contractor, so that will be lower. And while I'm up here, I just want to say, in a way, our Parks Board, I mean, we are visionaries, okay? We do see what the community needs. And we look at the seniors and we look at the youth. We try to accomplish everything for everybody. It's not just we're focusing on just the youth. If you look at Maple Street Park, we have the playground equipment, we have the splash pad, we got the pickleball courts, we got turfing the infields at Maple Street Park is going to end up, when this is all said and done, it's going to be the gem for the city of Canby. It's the most complete park. And then we're looking at the master planning for Waite Park, and then we're looking at master planning for Community Park. We've got a number of projects that we're looking at down the road. I mean, these are the initial projects that we have that are, looking to complete for 24, 25, the budget year, and then further on. But we are not, we are including all, we're vision, we want to service the seniors as well. So, I mean, I guess that's basically all I wanted to say. But I sit back and I hear, I hear the people on the dais say that, we need to be inclusive of others. We are looking, we're not, we don't have blinders on.
Well, and I can tell that this has struck a nerve, but I will just say that when I talk to people in the community, they say these things to me. So if there's a perception that needs to be changed, then that's fine, then we can address that. But for me to say everything's hunky-dory, it isn't. And so I'm imparting the information. What you folks want to do with it from there is your prerogative.
Okay, well, we'll continue to serve all the citizens of Canby.
Yes, Councilor Davis.
Thank you. As I was leaving the Park and Rec meeting last night, one of the people that attended our meeting stopped me and said, boy, I didn't know how much stuff you guys are doing, and that to me is communications. So we have to figure out on working on Facebook or whatever, putting out the list of projects that the Park and Rec Committee are looking at, as well as what is projected under the capital improvement projects for the next year. I think would be helpful because I don't think a lot of citizens know exactly what we're doing.
Probably true.
I would agree, yeah. Yeah. And Councilor Sassy, there's a Canby utility employee, Jason Peterson here. Maybe we can get him to help out a little bit with a scoreboard, huh?
I was going to mention Canby Utility, but I didn't want to volunteer anybody. I was like, check Canby Utility and see what their rate would be.
He's here to see how the Maple Street project went, so I thought I'd bring him.
I would like one more comment.
Yes.
One more comment. If we were to cancel the Maple Street turf thing, you would be shocked how many sports people in that group would be in here.
I'm not saying to cancel it. I don't know where you're going.
No,
I'm
just
ready to vote for it.
The sports group, they're bigger than you think too. That's another big area, Canby.
Okay, so.
Can I call for the question? These two are
Are
going to go
there
at
any
it.
other questions or discussion items on this matter? Councilor Stearns, go for it.
I'd just like to thank the council for discussing my concerns, because that's my main point, was to get that discussed, because some people had mentioned that to me, like when I asked a question, 1.4 million for Maple Street, and they like, well, is there something else they could spend on? That's always the question they have.
Sure.
So I just want to thank you for actually discussing it, because that was my point to bring it up, was to have a discussion on it. The one thing I just want to add is, it's sort of just the accountant in me. If you're going to 165 or 75,000 for the reserve, make sure you index it for inflation, because it's $75,000 now, and we leave it alone. In 10 years, we're going to say that was not enough, even if it was enough today.
For sure. Well, and before I ask for the vote, I will say this, that yes, I mean, the additions that we have done and the focus that we have placed on Maple Street Park over the last 5 years, it does move Maple Street Park being to that upper echelon of what we, I think, want to have for our parks in terms of that level of excellence for our parks. And I know that, like we talked, the Dodd property, that park is in the works. Like you just mentioned, Waite Park, that's another one that I know that has been on the parks conversation list for at least 10 years. So, those are big projects and big undertakings, but, these things take time to build up and build through, and by that time, I'll go to Timber Ridge Park over on the south side of town. That was not originally planned to be built as part of that development. That got leapfrogged a whole bunch of other projects before that, when that development went in. So there are those things that have occurred and going on. So it is kind of a a moving object sometimes. So thank you both. I appreciate it. So there's a motion on the table. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, it is a roll call vote. Thanks, Maya. Thank you.
Counselor Patton?
Aye.
Counselor Maldonado?
Aye.
Counselor Davis?
Aye.
Counselor Stearns?
Aye.
Counselor Sassy?
Aye.
And Council President Hensley?
Aye.
All right, that motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Mayor, very much.
Thanks, you guys.
Next ordinance is 1619, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Robert Half of Los Angeles, California, to provide temporary IT staffing not to exceed $315,000 and declaring an emergency. Todd, are you presenting this evening?
I am.
Hello.
Okay. Eileen, did you want to lead in?
Yes, just the council does know that I added a department responsibility to Todd's plate this past year and made him the IT manager. So we have this is really a procedural matter that needs to be addressed. We failed to secure an ordinance at the point in time that we needed to. So Todd is going to explain this, but the $315,000 is not new money. It's going back and capturing old expenses. So I think I might have just took all the thunder out of Todd's argument, but
It's all good.
go ahead, Todd.
Thanks.
No, it's all good. So as Eileen said, she asked me to take over for now the IT department. And in doing so, I've had to do a lot of work trying to clean up some of what we have there. And this was one of the things that came to my attention back in 2023. As you well know, we lost all our internal IT folks. And so in order to still have IT services, the then director went out to Robert Half and Associates to get some IT folks in. We are a member of a consortium, the Houston-Galveston Area Council, so that allows us to hire in folks without going through the entire procurement process, which is fantastic. I'm not the people that made this decision, but my assumption has to be at this point that the idea was that they would bring them on. It would probably stay below $50,000 because they were immediately going to go out and either bring some more people in-house or they were going to get an RFP going. And then, of course, more people left. So we had a turnover in most of the management staff at that point. And so this ball got dropped. We needed IT folks, and so they continued on. And when I started looking at the budget, I realized that we were well past our $50,000 threshold for council approval. Now, as far as procurement law goes, we're fine because it is a appropriate procurement, but our city charter does say everything over $50,000 needs to be covered by an ordinance. Now, I did talk to David, and he did make it clear that it doesn't say it has to be approved by an ordinance before it goes and happens, though that is our practice. It just needs to be properly covered by an ordinance in order to meet charter status. So that's basically what I'm asking to do here today. Now, this total amount is fairly large, but this spans the entire contract. So some of this is already spent and was spent in last year's budget. So far this year, we've spent about $200,000. I added an additional $75,000 because I don't have the RFP, and the RFP is out. I'm receiving bids back. So we don't have a permanent situation in place. We do have Kintech backing up our servers and helping us, but I still have one employee from Robert Half that I'm using for day-to-day desktop support because overall that's a better price for us to have that person on staff. And Kintech, I don't know, has the bandwidth right now to have 40-hour-a-week service that we need. So I built in about $75,000. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere near needing that 75, but I wanted to make sure I had enough cushion in there just in case. I don't know how long the entire RFP process is going to go. So $315,000 isn't what we've spent this year. It's the total amount of the contract that I intend. We won't go past. We'll probably be under that. Where does this money come from? Great question. The answer is we did not hire any staff. So our personnel services budget has over $300,000 in it. So we'll have to do a resolution to move our personnel services budget into our materials and services budget, but there's more than enough money to cover this contract and then some. So we're not exceeding IT's budget, we simply need to shift some money around. So overall, the whole purpose of this is just to properly cover in excess of $50,000 and allow me to continue to keep this individual employed while we go through the transition. Questions?
And I guess just to add to that budget resolution will be coming at a future meeting. So there's about 3 items that need to be covered in a budget resolution. So we'll bring those all at the same time if we can.
Okay. Councilor Davis, and then Council President Hensley.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion.
Okay.
Is the employee one that's currently here, or is it a new individual?
Currently here.
Okay, and the second question is, my standard question, explain the E-Class.
Well, because we're already spending the money, the 30-day waiting period doesn't make any sense, right? We could have not put it in there, and it's a pointless 30-day waiting period. So the E-Clause simply just rips out the 30-day waiting period because we're going to spend the money anyway, so. I knew you'd enjoy that, so I put that in there just for you.
Well, maybe now my phone will blow up later, so thank you.
Yes.
And I'll let Councilor Davis make the motion.
Councilor Davis, would you like to make a motion?
Very good. Thank you for the information. I appreciate that. I move to approve ordinance number 1619, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Robert Half of Los Angeles, California, to provide temporary IT staffing not to exceed $315,000 and declaring an emergency to come up with this, to come up for a second reading on April 3rd, 2024.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President, sorry, I'm so used to that, Councilor Davis. Second by Councilor Patton to approve ordinance number 1619, an ordinance authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Robert Half of Los Angeles, California, to provide temporary IT staffing not to exceed $315,000 and declaring an emergency for a second reading on April 3rd, 2024. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you, Todd. Next on the agenda is resolution number 1400, a resolution adopting the updated city council goals. So last meeting, we spent quite a bit of time going through and refining the goals, and staff was able to kick that back out very quickly to us for this meeting. If does anybody have a chance to take a look at any of the changes? Did everything get captured that we wanted to get captured? Priorities are good, etc.
Looks right to me. I feel like we accomplished far more last Wednesday than we did in the whole day Friday, so I appreciate the extra meeting and staff pulling this together.
Okay.
I feel like this is more what we were after. So with that, I will move to adopt Resolution 1400, a resolution to adopt the updated city council goals.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Council President Hensley and seconded by Councilor Patton to pass Resolution 1400, a resolution adopting city council goals. Discussion items. Councilor Davis.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Davis was first.
Anyway, I just wanted to thank the city administrator as well as the department heads for turning this around so quickly. I know that when we left the last planning, you weren't sure you were going to be able to get this accomplished so quickly, but nice work.
Thank you.
Councilor Patton.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for staff for doing this together. I think the last session went very, very well, but I still disagree that what happened during the guided session from Sarah and her team was not worth it. I think it was. I think we learned a lot about each other, and I think we learned a lot about the process, and I will stand firm in my thanks to her and her team. And that's that.
Here, here.
I think we should have another meeting for both.
Councilor Stearns, did you have some questions? You want to make some changes to carry it over to the next meeting? No?
Anything wanted to get reworded?
Yeah, okay. All right, so a motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that passes 6-0, and we have updated goals and objectives for our city council. Great.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at our screen, and I don't see we have city lawyer representation tonight. Is there a reason why Mr. Dukeman's not online?
He is spending time with his daughter tonight, and so I gave him the night off. And I didn't think the agenda needed legal representation, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eileen. Good question.
Would it be possible to get those plasticized like those old ones so that we have them up here?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 5 tonight, old business city attorney recruitment.
I think it's time for us to get an update on how things are tracking with the costs at the end of the month. It's been a while. I'd like to see those numbers.
Will do.
Thank you.
So maybe like a
quarterly
update?
I would like it, not necessarily we have to do it quarterly, but at this point in time, we've now had Mr. Dukeman on for a while. Their involvement has increased. And so I would like to see what the cost has been tracking since the time they've been brought on to where we're at with the last billable month.
I'm seeing nods of
That's fine, but I do want apples to apples. We can't consider Mr. Lindsay's work as 100%
No, I'm not talking about
No, I think-
comparison. I'm just
You
talking
just want
about
costs
what
alone. Okay.
where we're at so far.
Okay, okay, there, that makes sense. Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and actually that the city attorney is another of those areas where we're going to have to do a budget resolution because, as you know, we have money in the personnel category and we've been spending out of materials and services. So we're going to have to change that around. Yeah.
Will that show up on the supplemental budget?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not actually a supplemental budget. It's just a budget resolution. But, yeah.
Got to move the corn from one silo to another. Okay. I don't think we have anything regarding the city attorney recruitment piece. Eileen?
No.
So new business, discussion regarding council policies and operating guidelines. So based on our goal-setting conversation 2 weeks ago, wanted to just kind of keep the ball moving on a couple of items that we can. And this one, since it seemed to have been a topic amongst the leadership team and for us, I would like to try to maybe get some suggested areas within the council policies and guidelines that, or if there's another suggestion that, just to kind of get the ball rolling and whatnot. So, Councilor Patton, you were flashing early.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw this out for consideration amongst my fellow counselors. At the last time we had talked, I had mentioned when I was gearing up for my little training session impromptu training session about the charter and such, that Mr. Doofman had mentioned that there were some trip hazards that have been built into our policies and operating guidelines that really shouldn't be in there. So I've been putting some thought into this on top of researching other things, and I'm going to propose this to the group for consideration. The way I've kind of envisioned this and being kind of the person that was wrangling to get this on our goals would be to first to have Mr. Doofman go through what we currently have and identify those areas that really need to be taken out or modified for legal purposes. and then have a work session amongst council to identify things that we feel should be added or changed by each counselor, and then hold another work session to, and then create a subcommittee to work with city staff on finalizing those and doing the wording and stuff, because these are our operating policies and guidelines, so I feel that some representation from council should be part of that with staff. And then after that, hold another work session to review those sort of finalized things and make any final tweaks, and then move on to adopting it from there. I'm going to jump out ahead of this because I'm crazy, and I actually had a conversation with Councilor Sassy about this earlier, and if the council feels comfortable, I would love to head this up as one of the members of that committee, and Councilor Sassy said he would be interested in helping out as well. So that's sort of, I'm throwing that out for you to chew on and let me know what you think.
I definitely think it's a worthwhile, I think your process laid out here, I agree with. I would add, after we do our second work session, that it goes through a review by Mr. Dufman.
Yeah, that's sort of like the city staff portion.
And then, look at whether or not we approve it. I think both of you on that, I think there may be we want to avoid a quorum piece.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's,
3 isn't a quorum. I'll be happy to participate.
so I don't know if it's Council President Hensley or somebody else. I can make myself available as well. So, yeah. So thoughts, Councilor Davis?
I like the idea. I like small committees rather than the entire city council. Otherwise, I'd rather have Jason and
Scott.
Yeah, you.
I must be getting too late for the chief.
You said your bedtime's 9 o'clock. We got time.
It is. It's getting close.
He's getting in his gym
Getting
jams
close.
right
He's
now.
turning into a pumpkin.
I like the idea of those two perhaps sitting down with the city administrator and do a once-over first and see if they can resolve without going to Doofman first.
Right, that's what I was.
Because I think we're going to spend a lot of money on attorney stuff, and I don't like spending money with attorneys. So I think the more we can rely on those two and the city administrator and maybe some people from staff to sit down with those two, go through it, make some recommendations, and then bring them back to the rest of the council at a work session, and then see where we're at.
So this is definitely a topic to maybe bring back at the next council meeting to kind of get that. Do we need to do anything in terms of official? We can just nod heads and
consensus
and go forward.
Let's do it.
Yep, okay. Councilor Stearns.
Just one request, if you're redoing the rules of the council, less is better. The more rules that can be tripped over, the more tripping I will do. And and make sure that the rules promote the city's goals and not hinder, because I've seen too many times where the discussion stops being about the issue on hand and starts being about the rules of the issue at hand, and that just sort of, that's my comment. If you're changing rules, less is better.
Okay, perfectly heard. Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify that this is a discussion regarding solely the council policies and operating guidelines and not the charter.
Oh, yeah.
No, not the charter.
Okay.
No, the charter is a whole different ball.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
that's a whole more complicated ball of wax. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so head nod, a consensus approach that
Yeah.
kind of let Councilor Sassy and Patton work with Eileen and team to kind of flush out any changes that we can make there, and then determine next steps in terms of that order. Is it a work session with, and then
Yeah.
including our attorney?
I guess my final comment to my colleagues would be to remember that this is council's policy and operating guidelines, so don't let the tail wag the dog in those discussions. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay. All right. Item 7, mayor's business. I have none
You have no
tonight.
business.
No,
None yet.
all my meetings have been had for the month, so I'm going to punch out for the next week. We're going to start with Counselor Sassy tonight on council comments and liaison reports.
So library met last night, and they didn't have much stuff. They want to keep saying, don't forget the new hours. They've worked really hard to get more hours, and the library was awarded a teen internship grant to hire a paid teen intern age 16 to 19 through the summer. So they're very happy about that, with more information to come, and that's all they had.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Stearns.
I have a report on the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. There's a concern about orphan sidewalks. Personally, I often, when the weather's nice, I'll commute by foot from around Territorial and Oak to downtown Canby. And if I were to follow the sidewalks going on that route, I would be constantly crossing the street to find a sidewalk. And I think they would be a little bit even less safe than actually forgetting about, which I usually do. I forget about the sidewalks and just pick a side of the road that seems safest and take my chances. So I would, they would want to, and I agree with them, that to have some sort of plan on connecting sidewalks. Then there's various possible ways of doing it. And I think as a goal or a plan, we shouldn't be waiting for a particular homeowner to decide to put it on his own goodwill to connect the sidewalk from one to another, because that might be a long time. The second thing, when it comes to sidewalks, it was just brought out, it's kind of the tragedy that happened at the railroad tracks happened, as far as I understand, because somebody was doing their commuting on the railroad tracks. And the topic came up, well, he didn't have the opportunity to commute on a sidewalk because there's no sidewalk along Pine Street on that 99. And I don't know if that's no excuse or anything, but the idea is if there were safer passages, being a sidewalk, talk about sidewalks again, that might help maybe in the future give options besides the railroad tracks to commute on. Like I say, I'm not agreeing with the guy's decision or anything. I'm just saying that a sidewalk on 99 could help. So one of the things they also were wondering about, of course, the traversal property, they seem to bring that up. But one of the things they talked about was bringing up here is why there isn't an intergovernmental agreement to be able to use our city police on city property that the city owns, outside the city, the cemetery, traversal property, and maybe a sports complex that might be outside the city's boundaries, or maybe it might be a next before we do it. But the idea is what is preventing that, or why if that's a big deal. Or and we have the chief here, so that's why I figured I'd bring the question up, because he's obviously prepared.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, I can clarify that. One, we can patrol that area, and we do patrol that area. And if there's any crimes that are committed and called, since we are the closest police department, we're usually the first ones to respond. Now, it is Clackamas County's jurisdiction, but we have already an interagency agreement to take each other's calls when we need to. So, okay. Yeah.
So that's not an issue as far as
not an issue at all.
Somebody wants to have too big of a party on the traversal property, you guys can go and
if they call
and tell them
and
it's
county is not available, we could go help for sure.
okay. I just want to clarify that.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chief. Okay. Counselor Davis.
Okay, Park and Rec Committee, I appreciate council's input in regards to the COGIO project, or the athletic project. So thanks for allowing us to make that presentation tonight. Last night's meeting was very good. We did have a representative from the Canby Rotary, and they are interested in helping fund a project through the Park and Rec. And so when I spoke with Terry after the meeting, she just wanted to know what projects are there and what are the costs. And so I thought I'd sit down with the Park and Rec Committee and with Jerry and come up with projects potentially that might be recommended for Rotary to want to participate in. But specifically, she was looking at some handicap projects, whether it's in a park or something like that, was their first ask, but they are interested in other type of projects that they might, we might have on the slate that they could look at. She's going to be the next president of the Rotary, so she's looking for a project to do. So I spoke with her about that. Auburn Farms is, everybody knows, is moving right along. Legacy Park, we reviewed more artwork for the wall. We did choose the ferry. Picture of the ferry that is away from inside is fitness area. The other side of it would be a very nice mural of the Canby Ferry, is what the committee picked. And Jerry, if I'm off, is that right? Okay, very good. Okay. Maple Street Park, everybody's excited about that particular project as well. Kara Hawkins is still working on the memorial trees and benches, and she continues to lead the discussion in that, looking at different costs, very similar to the benches that we have outside of City Hall here that somebody would want to put a plaque on or plant a tree. So she's coming up with that. Of course, that policy would come back in front of City Council once that policy's developed. We went over the capital improvement projects for next year that are going to be submitted in the budget by Jerry in regards to for Park and Rec. And we're following the guidelines or following the priorities listed in the master plan for the most part. Obviously, we can't do it all in 1 year next year, so we started spreading those out as the budget allows for those projects to be done. And we continue to look at the opportunities at the Walnut Street and First Street site as a potential, as a possibility for a dog park and a dump tank for RVs. And the dog park would be a Park and Rec project, and the RV dump would be through Public Works. But there's a good possibility that that might be a pretty good location for a dog park. So we're looking at that as well. And then the council at our goal setting had asked about what are the current CAPRD boundaries for the CAPRD Park and Rec. And so I made copies for the council in regards to CAPRD sent these to me today. So hopefully enough copies here.
Is this the current school district boundary, or is this the proposed?
No. It's been brought way in. It's more or less the boundaries, to make it pretty simple, of the city limits is what it is going out. I've got a copy for you here too, but it does more or less cover the city limits area of Canby as far as the new, and what I asked them for would be the possibility of CAPRD coming and giving a history of CAPRD, what it is, and where their boundaries are, and who their current officers are. They've done a lot of work with the county to bring these boundaries in. So I think it'd be worthwhile to have them come in and speak at a work session to the council. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, sir. Council President Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only have a couple of things from Traffic Safety Commission. We did hear some folks from the citizens that came in to have, not really complaints, but raise issues and bring it to awareness of the commission, and they'll be working on them. One of them is wanting some kind of a attention drawer to the crossing at 13th and Fur. The citizen felt like there wasn't enough safe space to walk across the road to get to Hope Village from the other side of 13th. So they're going to be looking at that. possibly like a crossing light, like a township, or like a territorial, something like that. That's what they're looking at. There was another citizen that lives on Holly, and I was actually shocked at the data that came to us from the traffic study. There is a huge problem with speeding on Holly. So whoever the person is that goes one time a day, 75 miles an hour, stop it. There's somebody that's 75 miles an hour once a day. I don't know who you are, but you need to quit it. So at any rate, they're going to be working on ways to mitigate that problem, as well as evaluate the intersection for parking at Knightsbridge and Holly. Bob Canberra, thank you so very much for being a very exemplary chair of our commission. You've done a very, very good job. You have made some shoes very big to fill. But he is stepping down his chair. Eric Van Zant will take the role of chair upon Bob's departure, which is to be determined. His house is got an open house set for 4/6. So as soon as he sells his house, he will be moving to the Beaverton area and will no longer be in Canby, unfortunately. But he will co-chair with Eric until the time comes that he moves, so that he can pass off the baton in capable hands. So again, thank you to Bob Canberra for all your service to the commission. You've done a wonderful job.
How long is he on the traffic safety?
How long's he been on?
Yeah.
I would have to look. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. He came on, I think probably after Cobra left, Bob Backstrom. I think when he moved, I think is when that opened up a spot for Bob to join, if I remember correctly. But Maya knows better than I do.
What was his address? No, just joking.
What was his address?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, right. I will let you know. I'll let him know that you were interested in looking at the open house.
He has a very nice little house.
Yes. That's funny. I forgot you were still looking to move. Yes, we need to get her here. Okay, and finally, actually, I don't have a lot of notes on that. Nope, that's all I got. That's all I have right now.
I guess I have a question for traffic safety and the bike and ped group. Have they ever done a co-meeting?
Not that I'm aware of. Not since I've been liaison.
I've only been 2 meetings, so.
Okay. I just, as some of these items are, traffic safety, like you brought up the crosswalk piece, maybe that's something like a joint conversation could occur regarding that issue, or other, even like orphan sidewalk conversation piece could
Who's
be.
the chair of the bike and ped right now? Is it still Mindy?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I can reach out to her and talk to her about that.
Just something to look into.
Okay.
Gosh, there was something and it's bugging me that I forgot it. Councilor Maldonado.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Any comments you wish to make?
Just overall, I'm really happy with the way that things are going. These goals, I would have to disagree with Councilor Patton. I believe we put more into this just in that last meeting than we have. And I'm really excited to see us actually put these to use and make some forward momentum on them.
Yeah. If I could add to that real quick. I know that we've always had like the laminated overall goals, but if we could have this Gantt chart or whatever they call it in our drawers to kind of have all of the pieces in front of us all the time, that'd be good. What?
So Jim already asked
Jim already asked that question.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. Get 2
That's why
votes for
we're,
that.
that's why we're chuckling.
Okay. I didn't hear that part. I'm sorry.
It's a good idea.
It is. It's like, it's
Oh
time
my
to go
gosh,
home.
Scott, you got a granola bar. Jeez.
I didn't even know we had one.
Sheesh, I got napkins.
It's a good
I have
clarification.
pens.
Okay, all right, let's get it wrapped up here. Yes.
It's a good clarification because I wasn't sure which format you liked, because we could do either format. So if you like this as is, we could certainly laminate that. Or if you like the,
Whichever.
Okay.
Bigger font.
Bigger font.
Counselor Patton.
I answered my question.
Old eyeballs.
So I promise I only have one sheet of paper tonight.
But it's both sides.
Yeah, but I write big and chunky, so it's all right. So first, I will say to Counselor Stearns, while you were talking about the sidewalks, I looked at the mayor, and I looked at Jerry, and I looked at Eileen, because I have cooked up a master plan for how to deal with sidewalks, and at some point in time, I would love to sit down with you and share with you my dream. It's clearly not going to happen anytime soon, but I have a plan, and we'll see if that ever actually comes about. So as far as updates for me, I have worked out with Canby Utilities. So the problem is I really kind of have to travel every other week for work. So I try to be here. I try to make this my like off week for work travel, which means that during the planning commission meetings and during the Canby Utility Board meetings, I'm traveling. So I've worked out where I'm going to start attending the CUB meetings remotely more often. So I was able to do that. It was brought to my attention that I misspoke at the last time I gave an update. The owner's rep is not on board yet. They have put out the RFQ for the owner's rep and that process. So they're still making progress on it, but that person is not on board yet. So that is a correction to that. Something big for the community to know is that on April 9th at 7 p.m. in the Canby Utility Board, or in the Canby Utility Building, in the boardroom, there will be public comments for the proposed increase of 14.3% that would take effect May 1st. And per the announcement, this increase is tied a lot to preparations for the new water treatment plant and preparing for the cost of that. So that's something to keep in mind for that. And then they also voted to diversify their investments and move some investments out of the intergovernment pool, or whatever the government pool is, and put it into a private bank because they were getting better interest. And so they had kind of already done that, but they had not formalized it. And so they did that. For Planning Commission, they reviewed and did a training on the hearings process and stuff with Mr. Doofman, and I thought it was great. They did a great job and answered quite a few questions that the Planning Commission had. On the April 17th, we will be having a joint work session on the housing needs analysis as that continues to move forward for adoption. And I'm really excited to hear that they are going to be picking back up fencing and regulations and such about fences, which is something that I had started with back when I was on the Planning Commission, so I'm glad to see that coming back up. They did a final findings for DR 23-06 and PLA 23-05. They had a discussion on they had a discussion regarding density and changes that will probably be coming in the code as far as changing different housing types and stuff, and how to hit the different density rules. And then they also reviewed the updates for HB 2001 and SB 458. So that's it for those. Now, here is another iron that I have in the fire for council, so strap in, here we go. Because one of the goals was the street maintenance fee and a review of that. Yesterday, was it yesterday? Yeah, I had a meeting with Eileen and Jerry about the street maintenance fee, rebooting the task force, and we're starting to go out and find a list of people who will be a part of it. In the past, there was one counselor on the task force, but the question that I'm posing to council is, do you want 2 people? And if so, clearly I'm one of those people, and you can fight me over my dead body to get me off there. So who else of the council would be interested in serving on that street maintenance task force?
This is the dangers of the council starting at 6 o'clock in the evening, is we get rummy after or around 9 o'clock.
Yes, I promise, this is the last thing I've got.
I would like to see 2 council members on that committee. And then I want to make sure too that we are getting a good cross-reference of committee members, both from, not just business community. I mean, yes, the industrial parks and
Yeah, so-
downtown, but also community members as well.
So we're looking at the industrial park, the downtown, outside. We've talked about churches. We've talked about the Canby Center. We are going to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. Yes, there is a whole list of people. We don't want the group to be so huge that it is unable to function. We're really kind of targeting about 11 members. But yeah, so at this point in time, that's kind of where that's at. So the goal is to have the list of people squared away by April 15th or April 12th or something around there, and then hold the first meeting in May. And it'll probably be about 3 meetings. The goal is to have everything wrapped up with a recommendation to council by the end of June.
Okay. So Council President Hensley has said she's available. Is there any other interest from anybody else, or?
I'm always interested in numbers and fees, but if she wants to do it.
Doesn't mean that you can't go. I mean, you're more than welcome to go if you'd like, or vice versa, so.
Quorum notice if you get too many people.
No, 3 doesn't require a quorum notice.
No. 4 is a
So-
quorum.
Okay, so I guess we'll go with Council Patton and Council President Hensley with Councilor Stern as an alternate,
There you go.
or as an active participant.
When you get tired, just tap me and I'll go.
Here we go.
Okay, so that was it for me.
Okay. Next up is City Administrator Business and Staff Reports. Eileen.
I have a couple of items that I wanted to address, actually, I think 3, I'll save one. One is, we desperately need Budget Committee members, council, so shake the bushes, and we're coming up on that time where we need to have a full Budget Committee, so be thinking about that. We have 1 application so far and 1 potential applicant, but we could use some more, so.
And we have 4 openings and only 1 application, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So before Maya and I and Councilor Sassy leave, maybe we can coordinate at least an interview date for the 1 applicant that we have. Okay.
And we need we need 5 applicants to the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee as well.
Okay.
So, customer service changes, I've been working with the leadership team on that. We have some customer service changes that we're looking at that will enable us to extend our hours from still open at 9 a.m., but close at 5 p.m. And some customer service expectations that all calls for service will be acknowledged no later than 48 hours after receipt. The maximum an employee may request to work hybrid is 2 days per week, unless approved by the city administrator. They must be accessible to their supervisor and coworkers while working from home through voicemail and email. How they can be reached. They must indicate on their voicemail and email how they can be reached if working from home. Placement of a payment kiosk in the lobby for municipal court payments. So that's what we're looking at. I'm not quite ready to conclude that we're done yet. There is the possibility that there may be a budget impact of 0.5 FTE in order to cover this, in order to allow for staff to come and go and clean up at the end of the day and those types of things. So I'd really like to revisit this or extend this implementation for the budget, for budget time, because there are potential budget implications. I just don't know that yet. So We will talk about this proposal at the leadership team meeting tomorrow, and just stay tuned. I just wanted to give you a status report that we're working on that, and just let you know that, so. The last thing I wanted to do is just looking through the monthly reports. I just wanted to point out 3 areas because I want to just pick out, from time to time, things that I wanted to focus on during those, the bi-monthly reports that you get. And one was the vacancies on our various committees. So we have 1 vacancy on Bike and Ped, 4 on the Budget Committee, as I mentioned, 4 on the Heritage and Landmark Commission, 1 on the Transit Advisory Committee, and 5 on the Urban Renewal Budget Committee. So, Mayor, I'm glad you reached out to the audience earlier this evening and said, please get involved, because we do have a lot of vacancies to fill on these advisory committees.
And one coming on traffic safety in the next couple, probably 6 weeks.
Great. I also wanted to mention, I'm glad Councilor Stearns, that the teen library grant was received. Was that?
Sassy.
Excuse me, Councilor Sassy, yes. Also wanted to point out that their library intern, Ember, who was previously a volunteer with the library, started in January. So they do have a volunteer, an intern working right now, and then they have received this additional grant. So I just, from the standpoint of youth involved in city activities, I just wanted to acknowledge the library and the good work that they're doing there to bring youth into what they do and be able to start people off fresh in their career. And then on page 71, there is a picture of the community restrooms that are completed and open to the public. So Jerry, good job on that. So I just wanted to point that out as well. And that's all I have.
So I've got a comment and then a question for you. So I did drive through Community Park here recently on one of the nicer days, and I think it was on a weekend, and yeah, the 2 new bathrooms, it's so funny that we get excited about bathrooms, but they are definitely a much needed upgrade to the park, and so thanks to you and your team for getting that done. So it's a huge addition and ready for summer. The next question I had was, I noticed that we have new banners downtown.
I noticed that too.
Yes, we do.
Who, what, where, when, why, thoughts?
It was in the report.
I know, but not everyone reads the
Everybody
report.
reads the reports. Dash
And
That's why I was, that's why I was highlighting certain items from the reports, because I do
I read
wonder-
them, but the general public
Because
really
staff
doesn't.
takes a long time, and I mean,
No, they do.
a lot of work goes into preparing those
Sure.
reports.
And not all audience members read the bi-monthly reports either. So I just found them very attractive and definitely a much, we'll say, needed enhancement, because we didn't have banners, and some of the ones that were hanging on for dear life needed to be replaced. So
Yes, and so Jamie Stickle, Economic Development Director. That is an effort out of the Economic Development Department to beautify downtown, upgrade where necessary. We had an art project with the high school back, I think, in 2012 or 2000 and maybe even 2011, and that's where we got the banners from before. Tyler Nizer, who works in my office, he worked on these banners, and it was a labor of love. It was a great partnership with Public Works, and it's not quite yet done, which is why there hasn't been more of a fanfare here at council. But the hope is that when we get the last bit of our order, that we can come make a slight presentation to you all, show off the good work.
Yeah.
But it's a project that I think Canby can be proud of, that I'm certainly proud of, and Tyler and the Public Works crew that helped to create them and install them should definitely be proud of. So thank you for noticing, and thank you
yeah,
for
no, they
acknowledging.
look really great.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying them. Yes, Councilor Patton.
So I seem to remember that back in like the day, there were banners on 99E. Is there something to preclude us from putting banners on 99E?
Well, there are some implications with ODOT. That's something that actually we're looking into for beautification in the next fiscal year. Because it could be just finding the right company that can hang the banners to get the right of way. That's how we've done it in the past. In the way back, I think that they were just magically.
They just appeared in the middle of night.
But we're a little bit more, by the book.
Banners
So
are revisited.
that's the hope with the next fiscal year, is that we're able to upgrade that entryway in a way that pops more maybe than, well, certainly more than what's up there currently, because there are still some leftover ones, but really to do something fun and inviting so that people know when you get to Canby, you've arrived someplace that where people care, where people work hard, and that it's an inviting place. So
Awesome.
more to come on that.
The last thing I will throw out with the banners, because this is very fortuitous, in some communities, back where I grew up and stuff, they do during like Veterans Day and stuff, you can pay to sponsor a banner in honor of a veteran. Is there ever been consideration of doing something like that here in Canby? Or I'm just planting a seed for a thought, and then what comes of it will be?
It's definitely something that's been discussed, but the mechanism, there's how you go about that. Obviously some people can pay, but others, there have been other ideas on if the city were to just oversee a program like that. One of the things, although definitely not to the degree that you're talking about, but around Waite Park, we have installed flag extensions and for I think starting Flag Day or Memorial Day, Flag Day, those major holidays, our Public Works Department hangs American flags in the park as a nod to our country and to those who've served.
Okay, that was it.
Great, thank you all so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. Okay, that's all that I had. Those were my follow-up questions. Thank you, Eileen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jamie. Next opportunity for citizen input. If anyone wishes to close out the evening and opine. Oh,
Can I share something?
yeah, Chief Tro, come on up.
Thank you. So I just want to share a little bit of good news that I think we all can be proud of as a city and as a council and city staff, is that SafeWise, right, who comes out with a list of top 10 safest cities in Oregon every year. And we've always been in the top 10. We've hovered around 5 to 7 over the last few years. Well, this year, it just came out earlier this week, and we are number 2.
Oh!
I just want, a shout out to our police officers and our staff at the police department. They do a great job. They're committed to the city, and they really do a good job. But obviously, we can't be in the top 10 without council support, without great city staff, without great city administrators, and partnerships with Canby Fire Department, Canby School District, right, and all our other community partners. So I think it's something that we all can be proud of. So,
excellent. Awesome.
Thank you, Chief.
Chief Tro, the organization is SafeWise.
SafeWise, and they're a company that comes out, with top 10 safest cities in the states. Yeah.
Congratulations, sir. Excellent. Who was number 1?
Westland.
Westland. Former city of Island.
Okay, so she's taking us to number 1. Is that what you're saying?
There you go.
Got some work to do.
Everybody go to Westland and do your deeds. Just kidding. Just
We
kidding.
are off the rails. Okay,
Time to-
since there's
time
no
to adjourn.
citizen input, action review, Maya, please.
Okay, before I start, Counselor Patton, you may have to help me at the very end.
What happened? What did I do?
I didn't catch the last little bit on your part with the subcommittee.
Oh, okay.
So, you've approved the consent agenda, adopted ordinance 1618, approved ordinance number 1619 to a second reading on April 3rd, approved resolution number 1400, And there was also consensus for Counselor Patton and Counselor Sassy to work with Eileen and city staff on the council policies and operating guidelines. And also there was consensus to move forward with the street maintenance fee.
Task force.
Task force.
Yeah.
As well.
With Council President Hensley and alternate
With Council President Hensley and Counselor Stearns.
as council members, yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
Anyone opposed?
No,
Anyone for it?
all of us.
Great. I'm glad you said aye and not nay tonight, Counselor Patton. We are adjourned. Canby, thank you very much. Good night.
Good.